Good evening. I'm going to call to order the special meeting for Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022. Will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Korsbeck?
Here.
Trustee Hyman?
Here.
Trustee Stevens?
Here.
Trustee Hardy?
Here.
Trustee Grace?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bauer?
Here.
And Trustee Sarasota will be absent for the special meeting.
Okay, she contacted. Great. Okay, great. Our only agenda item right now before the regular meeting is the town administrator review. And Chris will be coming in at 6. He's at a soccer, coaches soccer right now. Would anyone like to put us into, or any questions? Okay.
I'll go ahead and take us into executive session. I move to enter into executive session for discussion of a personnel matter under CRS section 24-6402 FI and not involving any specific employees who have requested discussion of the matter in open session. Any member of this body, of any elected official, the appointment of any person to fill an office of this body or of an elected official, or personnel policies that do not require the discussion of matters personal to particular employees. And the following details are provided. Town Administrator Annual Evaluation.
So is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. The motion has been seconded. Any discussion on that? Clerk, may I roll call vote, please?
Trustee Grace?
Yes.
Trustee Hardy?
Yes.
Trustee Hyman?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bauer?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Korsbeck?
Yes. Okay, that was unanimous. Everyone, I'm going to call the order the regular Board of Trustees meeting for Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022. And thank you all for waiting. I know we're 8 minutes late here. We had a town administrator annual review right before this one. So if you could please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Korsbeck?
Here.
Trustee Hyman?
Here.
Trustee Stevens?
Here.
Trustee Hardy?
Here.
Trustee Grace?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bauer?
Here.
Trustee Sarasota?
Here.
Excellent, we got a full board. Next on the agenda is citizen participation. This is an opportunity for folks in the audience to come up and speak to the board about anything that is not on tonight's agenda. We have no one signed up. Is anyone in here that wishes to speak under citizen participation? Is anyone on the line? Okay. Then we'll move on now to the first regular item, and that's the consent agenda. Trustees, like anything removed from the consent agenda? Otherwise, is there a motion?
Move to approve and combine the items on the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, Trustee Grace has moved. Trustee Stevens has seconded. Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Hardy?
Yes.
Trustee Hyman?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bauer?
Yes.
Trustee Grace?
Yes.
Trustee Sarasota?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Korsbeck?
Yes. Consent agenda is approved. Next on the agenda is the Arbor Day Proclamation. And we have, Jeremy Olinger, our Deputy Director. Deputy Town Administrator. Sorry, it has Josh on here still.
Good evening, Commissioner and Trustees. Before you tonight is the Arbor Day Proclamation, and yes, I'm filling in for Josh. Josh normally does this, but him and his wife just brought a new baby into the world just recently, so he's on maternity leave a little bit. So I thought I'd stand in for him and allow him to take care of that. But tonight is Arbor Day Proclamation. Just talk a little bit about Arbor Day a little bit coming up. This is consistent with the last several, the 38 years. This will be our 39th. It's in arrears. This is how they celebrate this. So this will be we'll celebrate 39. 2020 is actually heading in this year, will be our 40th year, but we're celebrating 39. So next year, hopefully it'll be a bigger celebration with the 40 hitting that decade. But Town of Berthoud's been Tree City USA designation for the last, this will be the 39th year, like I stated.
So Christian, our screens aren't working. Sorry, Jeremy.
Right, Jen.
There we go.
Within that time, they've also earned 11 Growth Awards, which is kind of in parallel with forestry in the town, but different than Tree City USA. The 6 of which has been consecutive in the last 6 years, mainly with Josh's efforts in his department. The Growth Award is extremely important to him in complement with the Tree City USA. Most of you know, or if you didn't, to become a Tree City USA, the town has to do a few things. An established tree committee or board. We have to have a $2 per capita budget for forestry, host a annual Arbor Day Observance Proclamation, and have a tree care ordinance for the town. We satisfy all 4 of those. So Arbor Day this year, Saturday, April 23rd at 10 a.m. There will be a single tree planting at Wagner Farm Park. Don't know the tree yet nor the location. They'll be deciding that at the next tree meeting next on Monday. They do their typical spring snow crab giveaway that day. There'll be a presentation, usually somebody from the tree committee or a special guest that's got a historic arborist background, and they'll do some coffee and donuts provided on that day. There's our proclamation, and I think the next step, if there's any questions or concerns that the mayor.
Absolutely. Did you say 10 a.m.?
Yes, sir.
Before I read it, this is great. You guys do a great job. I'm happy we're a tree city, and we have been for so long, and you can't have too many of them, and I appreciate working with you guys on this. So having a great full tree committee with Lynn on it, so a lot of activity going on. All right, I'll go ahead and read the Arbor Day Proclamation for 2022. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the United States and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our town increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. And now, therefore, I, William Karspeck, Mayor of the Town of Berthoud, do hereby proclaim Saturday, April 23rd, 2022 as Arbor Day. All right, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, next is the public hearing for the parking on public property, code update public hearing. And this will be by our clerk, Samora.
Good evening, Mayor and trustees. As you will recall, this item was before the town board at the last board meeting on March 8th as an introduction. The town board did give direction to bring the ordinance forward for a public hearing this evening on the 22nd. As a reminder, this ordinance would amend Chapter 17 regarding parking regulations to give the Neighborhood Services Officer to enforce model traffic code parking regulations, as well as place regulations on specific commercial vehicles in regard to overnight parking. We're happy to answer any questions that the board may have this evening. And also, as a reminder, it is a public hearing.
Okay, questions from the board? I have none. I'll open it up at this time to the public. As Christian S'mores said, this is a public hearing, so your comments will be considered testimony. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this? Ordinance 1303. Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. How does everyone feel about this?
Well,
Trustee
yeah,
Grace.
I think the only thing, and this is just kind of a pie in the sky thing, if there was a way we could mark if there was places that were permitted industrial to park, where some of these exceptions do land, is that something that's in existence, or is that something that could be done to kind of ease some of the burden for people, or?
I believe that there is already signage along Second Street. Is that correct, Administrator Kirk?
Yes.
Yes.
The signage that says heavy-duty vehicles can park here or something.
Cool. That was my only concern.
Thank you.
On that, there are, and it hasn't happened for a little while, but there were homeless vehicles along there. Is that, how does this ordinance address that?
Along Second Street?
Yeah.
Well, that would depend a lot on the type of vehicle. If it is legally parked, if it's legally registered. If it is a legally parked vehicle, registered, there's not a lot that we can do. But like I said, if it is not parked legally and does not have a valid registration, then it would be considered an inoperable vehicle. In accordance with the code, we would be able to address that.
Question, may I say something?
Certainly.
Along Second Street, there are signs posted that states semis only.
Oh,
So, it's a little bit of a stretch, I can't remember exactly how long it is, but it's for the larger trucks, for them to stay there, not motorhomes and things like that. So it's mostly for the bigger trucks.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
But that area would come, to Trustee Grace's point, anywhere, anything that 1303 is affecting can go to that area on Second Street.
Yes.
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
It's like a 20-foot
And the,
box truck, things like that.
Yes.
and
That would be
the,
considered a semi, I
and
guess.
the particular weight limits, also the vehicles that hit that weight limit could also go over and
On Second Street, yes.
Okay. Everyone thoughts? Looks like everyone's in favor? I don't, yeah. Would anyone like to move on to 1303?
I move to approve ordinance 1303, an ordinance of the town of the board, an ordinance of the town board of the town of Berthoud, amending the Berthoud Municipal Code with respect to parking on public property. I'll second it.
All right, Trustee Grace has moved, Trustee Hardy has seconded. Clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Sarasota,
Yes.
Trustee Grace,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dowling,
yes,
Trustee Hyman,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens.
Yes.
Trustee Hardy,
Yes.
Mayor Karspeck.
Yes. Okay, 1303 has been approved unanimously. 1303, yes. Number 4 on the agenda item is the International Fire Code adoption by reference, and this will be introduced by our Community Development Director, Chris Reeves.
Hi, this is going pretty quickly. This is an adoption, actually, the last item that you had was kind of the end of the process. And so tonight, the fire code by reference, you're setting the hearing for about a month from now, and that's setting the public hearing. So right now, you're basically just, I guess you can have some discussion. The fire district's here, and in November of last year, they adopted the new International Fire Code, the 2021 by reference. There were some minor changes, but the International Code Council put those out every 2 to 3 years, and they've decided to adopt it in all their communities. So they've sent it over to us to consider, and we've kind of put it into ordinance form for the town of Berthoud, and just kind of giving you the information that there of things that are changing, and they are exempting out single family for sprinklers, and also changing to the state of Colorado's fireworks standards instead of the International Fire Code's fireworks standards. But the fire district's here today if you need any questions answered from them. But again, it's not a public hearing, and we obviously really appreciate them being here and their work. I know just today they helped with a pretty dangerous situation, getting into it and shutting it down. So anyway, so I'll stop, and they're here, and you can ask them any questions.
Trustees, any questions for Kurt or Director Kurt, or Director Freeze, excuse me, or the fire department?
I'm curious
Sitting
about
here.
the fireworks standards, how those are varying from the state standards that you were referencing.
From what I understand, you guys were basically they're basically amending the fireworks section of the fire code and replacing them with the state statute. So they're going to follow the state statute instead of the fire code's requirements. And I think that's pretty typical of most places. So anyway. But is that correct, Joe? Yeah. So,
All right, anything, any other questions?
I have
Trustee
one.
Grace.
On our packet here, the very first one says requirements for additive manufacturing or 3D printing equipment and operations for both non-industrial and industrial applications are now provided. I guess I'm kind of confused. I was trying to look through it and I couldn't find any reference what it's requiring now instead.
well, the International Fire Code, and I'm gonna have to have Joe come up here, is a giant code book. We have it in the office now. It's, a good 400, 500 pages, I believe. So obviously that hasn't been provided to you, so that's why it's being adopted by reference, and the amendments are being provided and kind of the enforcement requirements. But Joe can answer that, I think. I can't.
Okay.
Okay, so what was the question again?
So the very first item, it says changes adopted from the previous fire code. The requirements for additive manufacturing or 3D printing equipment and operations for both non-industrial and industrial applications are now provided. I guess I'm just curious what is going to be changed in that regard.
I guess I need to look.
You can come from the podium too, just because of the microphone. Thank you.
All right. I'm really not sure on that one. I've got the code book, I can look that up and see what the requirements are for that. So, I apologize, but that was one that was a resolution that was in the 2018 that we just carried over to the 2021.
Gotcha. So we're essentially just kind of
Yeah.
adopting this by proxy kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
What
Answer
is,
my question? Go ahead.
yeah, what is the, can you clarify for me the difference in the fireworks from the international to our state statute? Do you guys know what the 20,000 foot view difference is between state and the international? Smaller area allowed, or?
Well, the state actually has their design criteria when it comes to the fireworks. And so we're going along with the state because that's what most jurisdictions will go with. The fire code leaves it up to us to make that decision, but the state makes that decision for us. And so we follow what the state does. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah, I just didn't know if the state statute, I would assume Colorado state statute is more restrictive
Yes.
than the international.
Yes. That's why I say the code leaves it up to us to decide, so.
Any questions? Thank you. Though we're just setting the date here, I'll open it up to the public, if anyone in the audience would like to speak to this. Seeing none?
No.
Close that. It sounds like we're all in favor of setting the date. Would anyone like to move on this? Page 38, I believe.
I move to schedule a public hearing on the evening of April 26, 2022 at 6:30 or as soon as thereafter as may be heard for the consideration and adoption by reference of the 2021 International Fire Code. I'll second it.
Trustee Grace has moved. Trustee Hardy has seconded. Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
trustee Hyman,
Yes.
trustee Hardy,
Yes.
trustee Sorcelli,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dower,
Yes,
trustee Grace,
Yes.
Mayor Carpenter.
Yes. All right. Doing pretty good here. Number 5 is the West Side Crossing preliminary plat, and this is another public hearing. We have Director Reeves again.
Is this, should be-
Yeah, that's mine, and when he needs to pull his up, I'll just go, I'll pull it out.
before I go to this one.
Okay. Okay, this is the West Side Crossing preliminary plat hearing. If you remember, you heard this last year around the same time, I think February actually, but you heard a neighborhood master plan and a rezoning for this request. This is where it is located. Obviously, it's it's the northeast corner of the 56 and 287, so it's kind of a primary location in town. Just the zoning map, just mostly PUDs around it. And you rezoned it, and here's the new comprehensive plan, which has it as a suburban residential and suburban business. So last year, you rezoned it to C2, which is kind of the highway commercial or commercial district, general retail district. And the northern half got rezoned to R4 to allow a mixed-use product. So tonight, what we're looking at, and this is the neighborhood master plan that was approved, are about 58 houses. So 40 townhouses and 18 duplexes. So the duplexes you restricted at your meeting to a one-story only, and then the townhouses are the alley loaded product in kind of a orangish, brownish color, kind of in the right below the yellow duplexes. And then there's 5 commercial lots, so 5 commercial outlots. Then 5 basically lots that will handle drainage or the trail. And then 1 large lot, about a 10-acre lot potentially for a grocery store. So that's kind of the lot that's right there in the middle. This was previously the Safeway, and I'll let the applicant has a pretty nice presentation with some videos. So let's go to that. Oh, where was I here? Sorry. So this preliminary plat, is basically exactly the same as that neighborhood master plan that I was showing you. The lots are all the same number, same density, roughly and all the same size. The only things, this is the plat, it's a little harder to make out than that illustrative neighborhood master plan. But what you're doing here is essentially this is the preliminary phase of putting property lines and engineering down on the concept on the property. And what I'm, I guess, trying to say is that doing so in this preliminary platting phase, it's almost exactly the same as the neighborhood master plan, which you see here. So everything is the same. The only things that have changed is the parks have gotten bigger, the trail corridor has gotten bigger, and also there's more buffering along the outlots next to Meadowlark. So they've taken all of your comments into account. Otherwise, it's the same exact density, the same location for all the uses. Everything else is very similar. I guess looking at the plan, it went through the Planning Commission. They had the conditions, they agreed to the conditions that are on the front page of your packet. Probably don't, there's a lot of detail in your packet I'll try not to get into, but that means that rapid flashing beacon lights on Highway 56 are required with the development of the commercial lots. The commercial lots trigger really that requirement based on the traffic study, not the residential lots. The northern duplexes remain 1 story in height. That was a condition that you made in your original approval, but the Planning Commission has agreed on that also with the preliminary plat. Berms are included on the west side between 287 and the development. So the idea is all the outlots, and I'll go back to that. There's 3 of them. All the outlots here on this western corridor, if they have drive-throughs or anything of that nature, that basically they're not really seen from the highway. So it screens them, if you will, to make them more aesthetically pleasing, and also to, really, I think, kind of hide those drive-throughs is kind of the intent with that requirement. An easement for gateway signage for the town of Berthoud actually be kept dedicated on the southwestern corner of this development. We just wanted the opportunity, should the town develop some good gateway signage, that we can place it on this main corner. And the following recommendations that if everybody, I'll go to the more illustrative, there we go. Remembers there's a plaza right here on your screen. And there was some discussion about the plaza at the town board meeting. And based on that discussion and this preliminary plat, we're recommending that a noise study be done just to make sure that this plaza, maybe there's something that can be done with some barriers or some just some things, some planning, some to kind of block that noise for people that are trying to enjoy the nice view that I would assume that would be there. And the next one for a further traffic study along Meadowlark and Tundra Avenue. And that's just the thought being that, the traffic going left, maybe if there should be a restriction and any other additional requirements because there is a neighborhood next to it. From the meeting, from the neighborhood master plan meeting, they have done a number of things. They did a Rodell study, which is for a roundabout. That was discussed at the last meeting. We had CDOT and Baseline Engineering review that. The roundabout was gonna take quite a bit of right-of-way that the town would have to acquire, and maybe I'll go back to this map here, from the Quick Corner, the liquor store, and from this Roach property that's part of Gateway Park. The CDOT informed us that, they would maintain it, but that's it. They don't really have any funds to put into the roundabout. And I think from our analysis of the traffic study with CDOT and with Baseline, we kind of believe that the better location for a roundabout would be at Berthoud Parkway. And so when that Ludlow Farms develops, or the northwest corner of Gateway Park, we could easily have the right of way to create a roundabout there instead. So that was kind of the idea there, should you choose to accept that. And then there was pedestrian study, and I kind of put that, so there'll be some striping and some other things that will be required once when this is developed. So without getting into the rest of the details, it meets all of our standards, and it, again, it's exactly the same as the neighborhood master plan that you approved last year, just with all of the conditions and recommendations that you put on it have all either been explored or actually provided with their request. And with that, I will let Mr. Charpentier, who's that, and put up his presentation. All right, there you go. Put it on there. Jill?
We moved a little quickly this night. I don't have all my nerves out of me yet. I still get a little nervous for the board here.
You're all good.
All right.
We're all human here. And if you could state your name and a business address for the record.
My name is Scott Carpentier. I'm at 8340 Loudon Circle, Windsor, Colorado, 80528. I am the developer of this project with you for the last 3 years next week.
All right, thank you.
So we'll hold my breath and my emotions and let's go from there. So my presentation occurs with a little more technical, and I hope we was clear that we have met everything. We haven't deviated at all from that master plan yet, and we have just gone through a series of changes in time and people and rules and codes and everything else, and here we are tonight. We did get our unanimous approval with the planning commission last week or a couple weeks ago, and we hope that this might be, as lovingly as I can say it, the last time you see me in front of you for a while. My presentation again is a little bit more fluff. It's a little more visuals. I can go through them as fast as you want, maybe a couple redundant. But there's the video in here again. It's just pretty nice, and the last board enjoyed seeing that again. And if you want to see that, we can throw that on there too. All right? All right, here we go. The arrows, right? Okay, so this again, as Kurt already pointed out, the location itself, we consider it the gateway of Berthoud. So that is a very important part, and it's going to be very transformational to the entrance to Berthoud there. Again, this lot, just in memory, was made up of 21 acres here. There was 8 different parcels. Safeway was in the middle of it. We had to assemble all of these lots and put them all together into one big thing. That's what we're doing really officially tonight. So that's been a miracle, and 3 years with that as well. With some of the things that we have accomplished, as Kurt mentioned, we did get the rezoning done to C2 and R4. That was wonderful. The master plan approval for mixed use, it was very leading edge with everybody to vote for that. I think it's going to be really a great project. We've survived those code changes as we've talked about, guideline changes, and we're going to be a leader of those changes right on Main Street there, of those architectural guidelines. So I think that's really cool too. Of course, we know and almost have forgotten about COVID, messes up for quite a while. So that too. And the fact that it's just really a big project. It's a transformational project. It's right on the main corner, and it's everything really. So we've taken our time to address all the issues, from neighbors to staff to lenders to everybody. And we're ready to go. So again, this was the site plan itself. That was the master plan that was approved. Approximately 7 acres with the 50. I have 56 units altogether up there right now. We are approved right now for 58. One of the things that are going to come to us on the final is one of the codes that did change since the last time we had a master plan approval was some of the garage conditions that we only have 50% width. That made our lots too small for our buyer right now, so we have to kind of stretch those out a little bit and bring it down to 16 lots instead of 18. It's kind of a bummer, but that's just what we have to do. That's it again, the commercial site. We are planning on at this point here, we're hoping with this approval here, we will be able to start moving forward on grading in the middle of April. Dirt movers has been an issue for us. As you can imagine, they're extremely busy right now with their own stuff and residential stuff. And if not that, they get doing a bunch of government stuff as well, all over the place. We can't go anywhere without seeing it. So we are hoping to actually start moving dirt in April here. So that's great. Again, that was phase one right now. So we're here tonight to have our final approval on the preliminary plat. And then we'll work towards the final plat for phase one itself, which is the residential part of it. And here we're just showing that we have a lot of parks, a lot of playground, trails all over. And the sidewalk system goes intertwining through the commercial area and the residential itself. Again, this is the preliminary plat that we're talking about tonight. Phase one, it didn't come out too good, sorry. This is it. This is the aerial here. This is it looking north. Was it northeast there? It's actually very close. It is what it is. We are the same. There's one flip that we did on the corner with the gas station. We had to flip that lot because we were within 700 feet from a liquor store across the street. By flipping that lot, we were able to get past that. But everything else is exactly the same. This is the plaza that Kurt mentioned about. This is right on the corner. We think that this is a great transitional spot for people, a place to sit, talk, look at the mountains, look at the views. Yes, we have the intersection there, but I don't think that will be an issue, and we'll confirm that again on the sound study, just for peace of mind on that. But it's all about being able to work, live, hang out in a social places. We got this place here. There's a plaza. We have this plaza that's in between the commercial center and the residential. So as people are transitioning from the residential, they have a place to come, bring their dogs, get the little stores in there and everything else in there that'll allow people to move around. Again, Kurt mentioned this about the berming. This was one of the things that they wanted us to make sure we were doing, but we already are addressing it. This is kind of a look from 287 towards the drive-through. By a little berming on there, you can barely see the car. And with any growth in vegetation, it'll quickly disappear. How are we doing so far? All right? All right, we're almost there. This is the street views, what it looks like. This is the homes to the north that we all agreed that would stay at a single level. Okay, and that was all worked out with the neighbors and everything. I think they're all happy. Inside in between there, we do have rear loaded garages in there as well. Another different kind of view angle from it. You see the trail systems go all the way around the whole perimeter, through in and out the whole project, through the parks, trailhead system right there. I don't have a pointer. Ooh, I do. I don't know if it works, but there's a trailhead there for the trail system as well. Okay, this next one is 1 minute and 30 seconds. If you'd like to watch it, I can get it going. I think. It's a little fast, but it gives you an idea. Should have put some music to it, sorry. It's the playground there. the street between the commercial and residential. That's it.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Carpentier. Any questions, for staff or for the applicants?
Yeah, are you building the commercial buildings in the 5 lots, or are those gonna be like a build to suit sort of thing?
We have those, there is the commercial, the residential is sold to one builder, already done, and the commercials will also be lots for sale. It was just my vision, and I thought that the business owners nowadays would prefer to own their lot rather than just renting.
And then are they gonna all build to the same kind of design standard that you set, or by our standards? So
Exactly
that
by
we're
your
kinda-
standards, yeah.
So they'll all like mix,
They
they'll
will,
all
yeah,
match, so it looks like it's a single development.
Part of the new architectural guidelines that are out there.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I have an extension on that real briefly, and then I'll go back to you, trustee Grace. By our standards, Mountain Avenue overlay plan only extends to the first set of buildings. It doesn't necessarily extend all the way through the development. So would in order to keep the whole project cohesive, would you follow the mountain overlay plans all the way through?
We already are.
Excellent.
Trustee Grace?
So I guess the residential up north, I know you have a couple parking spaces kind of on the southwest corner, you can kind of see in the corner there. With the duplexes and some of these kind of more vertical homes, do you anticipate people parking in the street? Is there going to be enough space in the street for people to park there?
Well, I think there is probably 6 or 7 spaces in that trailhead, I think there. I don't think they're gonna need, I think most of the activity is people walking and coming from the other subdivision as well.
Sure, no, I'm just also thinking because you've also got in the residential area, I like how the streets connect through, so it's not like you have to leave all the way out and then drive all the way back around to get something else, but at the same time, now you're opening that up and I could see overflow parking, somebody's parking in front of somebody else's house just to kind of go somewhere else. Is this, I'm just looking at it conceptually, is
It's
that?
a standard sized street, Mike. Well,
Okay.
don't know.
The
Anyway,
54?
Which one do you want
It's
to-
a standard sized street, so it would have parking on both sides, and then the northern end of the townhouses, those are all alley loaded, so they wouldn't have driveways. So we have updated our code to require like a kind of a overflow visitor parking, but with all of the commercial parking and the trailhead, and that, we think that they have plenty of parking. So.
Okay, for the, I guess, and this might be more on the conceptual side of things, the alleged Safeway, the big box store, getting deliveries from semis, is that kind of built into the traffic pattern with how this is gonna get put in? So semis can get in without it being too much of a headache, and they can,
They can, we have that design in the back. We don't think we're gonna get a big box store like Safeway sold us a lot, so they're not coming back.
Okay.
And King Super is the only other player out there really, is a big store, you
Sure.
know? And they have Longmont and they have Loveland. So we think we're gonna be more of a 25,000 square foot type grocery store in there.
Sure.
And that has a design for that truck and that deliveries in there.
okay, so, okay, just making sure, you don't have semis and everybody trying to fight for traffic with parking on the shoulders.
I don't believe so.
Okay. I guess the only other question I've got is, as you go further down into the commercial side from the residential, kind of on the eastern side, that road you can kind of see on your,
Can I get a better picture for you?
yeah, the one that's going from the kind of top left, kind of through the middle. I see some, I guess, recessed areas for possible drainage. Do you have any speed bumps planned in there, or any kind of prevention from somebody just flooring it through there or through commercial? Is that anything?
Like a
in the
little
design?
racetrack there, is that what you're
Yeah,
thinking?
yeah. I'm just thinking, if it's there, somebody's gonna use it like that.
I don't think that's come up, Kurt, has it? I don't think that's come up, but I think we're gonna do whatever it takes to keep it safe and slow and pedestrian friendly.
Sure, I mean,
Raised
if,
crosswalks.
yeah, the raised crosswalks or even those
Crosswalks.
reverse speed
Well,
bumps.
we do have
for
a couple of
drainage.
those going across, and those trails
Oh,
going across
yeah.
the main street.
Cool, yeah, that's all I have at the
All
moment.
right, cool.
Thank you.
We'll make sure.
Cool. How far, one thing that, you haven't touched on, I know, Mayor Pro Tem Dower talked about buffering, and distance along 287 last time. We got the knoll, the raised, section there. Is that what is addressing that question?
I think that and the 65 feet between the two of them.
Okay.
I think there's a long distance there that we addressed on that. We have vegetation on the side, on our trail system itself, as well as the berming that we're doing on all of them.
Berming, thank you, that's the word I was looking
And we're
for.
doing it all the way down.
And so how far from 287 is that trail?
60 feet.
Is it six?
It's about 60 feet, 65 feet.
Okay.
It's a long ways.
Pardon me?
Maureen was looking for something to
I'm
compare it
like,
to. What's
visual.
60 feet?
What's 60 feet, like, compared to this?
I don't know, this is about,
Half of a football field, maybe, somewhere in there.
This is about 30 feet.
yeah, it's
from
about
here
30
wall.
to the wall,
Okay,
so.
all right.
Double that.
Have we given completely up on the roundabout? Or are we still looking at traffic studies? I know that staff is recommending Berthoud Parkway, but I feel that a roundabout here would be important, so I don't know if you'd want two that close to each other. But again, the question, have we given up on that? Or is that still a possibility of having a roundabout at Meadowlark and 56?
I think, I don't want to speak too much, but I think staff has determined that it's not, it would be hard acquiring all the land that it takes to do that.
It's really infeasible based on the Rodell study and the amount of space that we would have to acquire in order to build the roundabout. It would actually include purchasing and demolishing Quick Corner in order to accommodate a roundabout of the size that would be necessary at that corner. We think that's infeasible. We also think, Kurt mentioned Berthoud Parkway. We've also talked about Gateway Park Boulevard as kind of the entrance to Ludlow. There is more room there and more space.
But,
and
well-
a traffic signal, as appropriate there would function just as fine, so.
Okay,
So we think a roundabout is a no-go.
is a no-go?
So you'd have to, I mean, it's, in the end, I guess, their decision, but you'd have to require 3 properties, tear down the Quick Corner. And we'd only be able to basically get funds for their quarter of the, of this project. So it's a big project to do a roundabout there, just because of the logistics of it.
So basically, yeah, that's almost a done deal then, as far as staff is concerned?
I'm not saying it's a done deal, we're just giving you, from a practical standpoint, there's a lot of hurdles. So
I
it's
think,
your
I think,
decision.
I think from our perspective, could we do it? Yes. Should we do it? No. We don't believe we should. Both from a cost perspective, the amount of land that'd be necessary to acquire, the cost to the town, not just the developer. They're not responsible for the entire cost of that roundabout, only a portion that's attributed to their development. And so we would end up funding the rest of that. And again, I think trying to acquire 3 different properties, tear down an existing business, I just don't think it makes sense. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars, not just, this isn't like a $500,000 project. This is $6 or $7 or $8 million probably. I just don't know that that's worth it for us. In terms of functionality and safety, it'll be fine the way that's designed.
Okay, so, and that's my main concern is the functionality and specifically safety.
Yep.
But if it's 6 million and it's gonna save lives, I'm okay with that.
Sure.
But, so I don't know if I would say it's dead yet. I'd still like to hear some more
Maybe
conversation
that
on that.
conversation could come up again when Ludlow starts to develop, because who knows what that corner's gonna look like.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. As additional, that Ludlow, the size and scale of the Ludlow farm property might necessitate a totally different traffic pattern than what exists today. I don't think it's warranted based on what they're trying to do, or we don't.
Okay, fair enough.
And if you try and tear down Quick Corner now, you get some pushback.
Yeah, but you're gonna put a gas station across the street. anyway, that's
Requires historical.
the next, my next question was, do you have any players for that, any, people interested in that anchor store, if you wanna call it that?
The answer is yes. We don't have any deals yet with, that's the main one you're talking about?
Yep. Exactly.
It's a big store, so it's a selective few of people that can go in there,
Okay,
you know, but, we have grocer and we have a retail store as well.
okay,
They're both are anticipating it. One's a town builder, I believe, and the other one's a grocery store,
okay,
you know?
all right, so
Prefer not to
potential
say the names if I
there.
don't have to. I might get in trouble if I do.
Okay, fair
Contracts
enough.
like-
But I think it's all, to answer it on my end of it, there's a lot of them that are sitting right there waiting for the project to be approved. They've been waiting for 3 years, and quite honestly, I lost some of them to up the street, you know, to the golf course up there. I lost some of my users, you know,
Okay.
it just took a while to get here. So I think when, hopefully the good news comes back, and I think everyone will start exercising LOIs.
Last thing is in your pictorial diagram there, you showed all the trees and the lawns and the sidewalks in the residential part. Will those reflect our tree lawn requirements, or those showed them all in the yards rather than in a tree lawn?
They have the standard tree lawn for
Okay.
all of the developments.
All right,
They're a standard street, so.
so we're all
Yeah,
good
and
there?
and so like if you, it's hard to see on this image, but
Yeah, this
the
is
trees are
maybe
in the
not-
tree lawn in the
Yeah.
front of the townhomes. I think what you might be thinking about is behind them, is the alley.
The-
Alley.
The big aerial view showed the trees in the yard, not the tree lawns, and so
Oh, okay.
that just confused me, and you know how easily I'm confused.
Here we go. This is probably a better representation, just because I think.
Okay, yeah, all right.
The designer of that, I don't think put every single exact detail there, but you can see this is the actual landscape plan that would be approved with this. So you can see that it has tree lawns around all of the streets, so.
All right, that's all I
And
have.
they called out trees and they meet all of our standards, and if they don't, we'll have to go back and have Scott replant them. And another, a year after you put them in, so anyway, that's how it works.
Okay, I'm not gonna do any comments right now, so, okay.
Sure, and they have expanded they have a trail on that north end that we really didn't discuss much either. And they expanded the plantings on the north end that you can see on this. I might have gone a little too quickly, but just to kind of give it more of a buffer from that subdivision, the single family subdivision to the north there. And also they're connecting to their trail. So if everybody knows, there's a trail there that you can see from maybe an aerial map. So this will connect to that trail, which will eventually connect to Richardson. So I think you can see it here.
Yep.
And so with all of those projects being done, and the trail along 56, so it'll provide quite a bit of extra trails, so.
Well, there's a gap in the middle though, right?
But, say that again, I'm sorry.
The trail at 56, then there's a gap until it gets.
There's a gap when it gets to Richardson, but, anyway, we didn't mention that, but they did add some extra screening, as you can see from the last time they were here. So.
Not to Richardson, Kurt,
Are you talking about there in front of Gateway?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
there is-
talking about in.
That'll be required to be built when that site develops, but yeah, there is a gap there.
But they did add all these extra trees and everything, and a little more space, so.
other questions?
I just wanted to clarify based on the roundabout conversation, is there intent to add a street light at Meadowlark?
Once when they start in the commercial, a street light will be put in. So that is warranted, that's with the first phase, so yes. So that was the option, they can do the roundabout or the street light, and, there's a big plan, I just didn't know that you needed all of that, but I can probably bring it up on the end drive if you really want to see the study that shows how much space.
I would love to see that.
I would love to see that too.
Yeah.
I just think it's helpful to know there's a street light plan there, because I.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a street light there, and I'm not sure if I can do it over there.
In
There's
the
the
staff
M
memo
drives
may
on there.
describes
Oh,
the
yeah.
signalized intersection.
Unfortunately, yes.
So Kurt, is that a full movement intersection?
Yeah.
That's not the way I read it. There's a right-hand,
Meadowlark and 56 is a full movement.
is it,
intersection.
okay, right.
Yeah, with
It's the
right
7
turn, left turn, and straight through
Correct.
in all four
In all
directions.
4 directions.
Is there separate
Acceleration
lanes for left turn versus straight versus right turn?
There is turn lanes queuing space.
You named your project.
No, and thanks for pulling this up, Kurt, because this is a big deal, and I'm with Lonnie. I would be willing to really explore, because having two stoplights so close to each other, right? 287 and Meadowlark are not that far apart.
That is part of their traffic analysis to make sure that that's not going to create stacking issues, that you won't have a red light where enough cars back up. And I do think we feel like Berthoud Parkway is a good location. We've also talked about, and the more we've talked about it, the more we think that a roundabout at Gateway Park Boulevard, thinking about the development of Ludlow in the future, that's right in the center of that property or that project. That's an 800-acre development that's been planned for, quite some time. Having that roundabout at Gateway Park Boulevard is a better spot in the future. Maybe not today, but in the future, we think it'll be a better spot.
I don't disagree, I just don't see it as a either or thing.
Sure.
So, but I realize, when you look at the aerial, that's why I'm interested to see this, but when you look at the aerial, the quick corner building is much closer to that intersection than
You need Adam here to.
you would think.
I'm wondering where we put it. So sorry.
It's so
Just bear
close,
with
you
me.
can barely get in and out the entrance there.
Right, so
This
that,
looks like my
so
file
I can
management.
see, but,
You know, it's in there.
if there's a property that's ripe for redevelopment in Berthoud, that would be one of them.
That's terrific. And I've
And I just,
seen it.
I'll add to that once I have my questions.
There's the old ones, maybe there's a different one, the second or third one. Sorry, I'm talking to myself, aren't I? Well,
So, Chris,
What did you get for offering to bring it up, Kurt?
administrator with Ludlow, are we collecting right now enough
problem.
for when that was, so it wouldn't all be on Ludlow? Okay, so we're thinking of that, okay.
Although Ludlow is significant enough in size that their warrant might require them to pay for a much more significant portion of a roundabout at Gateway Park Boulevard, if we chose to build one there in the future.
Well, if you can't find it, Kurt, maybe you can just go to the aerial and use the
I
cursor.
cannot find it, but it might be on my phone.
Know the name, just type in the
Sure.
search.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not gonna work. So, I just don't see where in the world. There's a separate study. I'm sorry.
You know the name of the file, just search it.
Put in roundabout. See if it comes up, you never know.
Is there anything I can answer, maybe?
Bring up a
in
yes
the meantime?
video.
So
Yeah, good point.
keep other questions rolling.
Trustee Hammond, do you have anything else where he's looking it up?
I do not.
Well, once that gets pulled up, or we could do the aerial, can you pull up that aerial?
Just, yeah, use your cursor.
Sure.
I see lots of roundabouts in other places that aren't totally huge, so it's hard to,
It's a tear.
It's hard to, yeah. There we go.
So they want you to use this.
I don't know.
we can see it. Just not
So
on the big screen.
So you can see it. You're showing them. They can see what you can see right here.
Oh, I see. So it wasn't.
We can see it on our screens, we just can't see it on the big screen.
you trying to zoom in or?
Well, yeah, can you,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
You
can you
just-
zoom in
just-
a little bit? or-
yeah, just, there
Mental
you go,
break here
there
while
you
we're
go.
on.
think he was making dinner reservations. I don't know.
I'm sorry, I wasn't there. So,
Waiting for that new
yeah, so
restaurant
they
to come
were
in.
going to take all of this area.
Can you zoom in at all? Right click, and then you just scroll bar.
I'm gonna have to get a, oh, hold on.
Maybe Google Earth might be.
It chopped off all four corners.
Yeah, I chopped off all.
All right, well,
Can't believe I can't find that. Sorry. I tried that.
I mean, I definitely understand what you're saying, Chris. I just wanted to sort of visually understand it, so.
If we pulled it up on Google Earth, I
That was
could
good.
show you pretty
However,
Yeah,
Yeah, whatever.
Deputy
that
Clerk,
was.
if you could go back to what you just did.
yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, so if you imagine, you know, the extent of the roundabout, if you kind of drew a circle that went through the corner of the quick corner building and just kind of continued that circle around, that's about how much space would be necessary.
So half of the quick corner building.
Yeah.
And
So
then
it's 2 lanes both ways.
so in the liquor store corner, it's just parking lot or vacant land, or there's a shed there or something.
They are going through
Site plan review, so
site
that
plan
would be
review
their
also.
detention area right now, so yeah, that would affect their property too.
It wouldn't have as much effect on the north side, right? I mean, you have to design around that in the future on the gateway side, right?
It wouldn't affect
on the
like
east side of
commercial on the
Middle
north
York,
side.
but it would have a significant impact on the south side.
The northeast side did have a lot of utilities and things where that would be taken up, that would have to be moved.
There are actually 2 drainage ditches parallel to each other on that property.
So yeah, just a lot of
A lot of
things.
utilities. There's a lot of challenges out there.
And I'm sorry, I can't bring it up, I don't know where. Maybe I'm just nervous from, I'm not used to pulling things up in front of the board meeting.
All right, Trustee Hyman doesn't have any other questions. Anyone else before Mayor Pro Tem?
Tim?
Just kind of one more on the commercial spaces. They're all gonna be sold lots and then they build it. There's not gonna be any plan to
you
build
found
any sort of strip center with like 4 or 5 spaces in it that a smaller business that maybe doesn't have quite the cash flow can just go rent the space.
It's not my thinking, you know, I'm hesitating because you mean if we were to go ahead and just go build anything out, build to suit something, you mean?
Yeah, because I mean, there's a lot of
If we
a lot of
did it-
smaller businesses that can't go out and get a mortgage for a $1 million lot purchase and building out, you know.
We understand, but the ones that we're talking to are already got that in mind, that when they build something and they take that site, they're gonna have other buildings, other businesses within it
So you're
itself.
looking at the medium to large national
But
franchise
if we
type
did,
things.
to answer your question, if we did do anything in my imagination, it would probably be the big anchor building ourselves, that we might just do a build to suit. Contrary to what I said about everyone owning their own lots, the grocery store, the bigger ones still like to rent.
Yeah, I was just trying to think about some of the smaller businesses in town that might want to relocate to a retail center, but don't want the expense of having to build out and buy a lot.
It's a great question.
You just want to build out a 1,200 square foot retail space.
And we're trying to find that marriage in there, and we're trying to recruit right from in town too, to get people to move over to this.
I know of a couple of places in town that'd probably be interested if there was already an established building possibly.
Can I ask a roundabout question?
Sorry,
Roundabout
this was in
question
the
or
study I
roundabout
pulled up, I just didn't go through the
Oh, look at that.
pages very well.
Now that we can see it.
We'll-
Thanks, Chris.
we'll,
Now we can see what would be the process if the board, or if this was feasible for the quick corner side. Is that going to them? Like, I don't, yeah, okay.
We would have to try and negotiate a deal if they were interested in selling. The only alternative would be then to try to go through condemnation if that was important enough to the board.
Do you know anything about the coffee drive-through? Are that independent or are they leased or something?
I honestly don't know.
I would assume they're
property,
leased. They're not
I believe,
a
is
separate lot.
Owned by the same people,
Owned by
their
the
own
same
coffee
people that
shop,
own Quick Corner.
coffee.
But Coffee doesn't own their building.
Yeah, I don't think it's a separate lot, so it'd have to be leased space.
Quick Corner actually uses part of the coffee shop as storage.
We do have 2 lots for some strange reason, but the buildings are not on 2 lots.
Oh, okay.
Just that used to be 287.
Yeah, it's just kind of a weird
It's very odd.
remnant
I
of.
was just wondering how this would, yeah, okay, how this would work out. Mayor Pro Tem. And anything else regarding the roundabout while we had it pulled up?
That's my next question. that's okay with everyone? All right. So, let me ponder this. With some of the questions that came up in the citizen letters that we received in the prior iterations, there was concern for pedestrian safety, that sort of thing, and the amount of traffic on Meadowlark. And I might pose this question to you, that if there was a roundabout at that intersection versus a signalized intersection, do you think it might be possible that we could direct more traffic to go all the way around the roundabout and do the right in, right out traffic instead of making a right turn up on Meadowlark into the more residential section, increasing the traffic on Meadowlark? Do you, is there the possibility that we could enhance pedestrian safety by doing a roundabout and having people do essentially a U-turn to go into the right in, right out on the south side of the development, of the commercial side?
I mean, I would have to defer to a traffic engineer.
I think
That would be.
I think in the case of a roundabout, my assumption would be, and we'd have to ask the traffic engineering team, but most cars will just they'll turn left for all intents and purposes, right? They'll use the roundabout, turn left, and go up Meadowlark anyway. You might have a few people that might make that full circle and come back around if the business that they wanted to access was
It's
right
on the
adjacent to
south
that
side.
right in, right
Yeah.
out, but I can't imagine that it would have a significant impact.
But we don't have any data to support one way or the other.
No, I don't know. That would be that's an interesting question.
I think that's a question for a traffic engineer.
Traffic engineer, yeah.
I think that it's supposed to be safer, but I don't have the studies.
I mean,
I'm not an
for
expert.
me,
And you're talking about though reducing traffic on Meadowlark. Would it have an impact in reducing traffic on Meadowlark because you could make essentially a U-turn around the
yeah,
roundabout
because
instead of turning left and
if
go
the
up
people are
Meadowlark?
coming off of, this is my thought process, is, if I were driving up 287 and I saw that, that particular commercial development and there's a store I wanted to stop in there, I don't know if I would just go 3/4 of the way around and go up Meadowlark and then turn in, or if I would go all the way around and go in the right in, right out if I saw the stores that I wanted to go to were right on that south side. I might do the U-turn, and because if I'm coming up 287, maybe I'm going back out on 287, right, to head north again. So, yeah, I didn't know if, if there's any data to support that it might reduce the traffic on Meadowlark, and if so, then, I think that it's something that might be interesting to learn more about. I did want to point out on page 60, it says, page 60 of the packet, there is a typo in there. You guys are going to want to fix it. Because we don't want 481 new homes going in on that piece of land
Come on.
there, so you might wanna fix that typo.
Good catch.
So just, do you wanna fix that typo? Cause I got to put it in the form of a question, so.
Yeah, there's not 481 homes planned there.
Thank you. My next question is, I guess I do not recall the discussion well enough to the wider berm on the west side. When we talked about the berms up on the corner of Berthoud Parkway, North Berthoud Parkway and 287, we talked about berms to block the drive-throughs from the road. On this project, my intent when I discussed it was that the screening be on the other side of the walkway so that there would be some vegetation between the trail and the highway, even if it was just a couple feet wide. And I specifically, the board may not have agreed with me on that, but that was something that I was really hoping for, was just some bushes or trees or something, just move that walkway in enough feet to put some sort of screening on it. And so right now, it is still right up against the property line, which is, so I don't know if the rest of the board, question, not comment, but question.
Kurt,
Did
can
the
you
rest of the
pull
board
that
know?
I'm trying to, I don't know if you can see
There,
it.
there is
There's an
landscaping and
outline?
screening along that entire west side.
The west side of the walkway or the west side of the buildings?
Oh,
It's along the
good
west side
question.
of the buildings, not the walkway.
I do remember you saying that because the beating sun hitting the people walking in
The
there. I
beating
remember
sun
that.
on the west side, it will be intense. So that was, and I didn't know if the direction, if that was
Yeah, I
voted
thought we
down as a
discussed, so
direction.
something about moving the sidewalk and the trees.
Thank
So
you.
the trees are on the
The
very
trees
most
are
outmost
on-
property line and the.
Yeah,
I can't say how that, actually, I remember that, I don't know how we directed
I
it.
don't know.
I
how
don't
I
believe
did
that
that.
was a condition of the board.
And it was a 50-50, because the flip side to that is then we had the sidewalks right next to the buildings with no screening at all.
20 feet.
You know, and then we had logistic issues too, as far as watering and everything else on that side, the sidewalk, and for supplying water and bushes and so forth as well. I mean, I remember it too, and we did explore it, but we certainly think that this is the way to go.
My next question is, on the fly-through, it looked really cool. You had the climbing wall and shade structures. Is that just kind of a nice little added touch for the fly-through, or is that something that's actually kind of being put
It's
through?
in our plans. So we
Yeah.
said,
So if you,
it's really cool.
I don't know if that's on your screen.
Let's see, my next question, sorry, I always have a ton of questions. So yeah, I already asked about pedestrian screening versus screening for the drivers going past the buildings. Commercial commitments, that was already asked. And on the residential, the fly-through showed a straight roof line for consecutive 4 units. And I was of the understanding that our code does not allow for a straight roof line across 4 units.
That might just be in the video itself, because we're following the code all the way through.
Kurt, what is our code?
Yeah, I mean, you have to have differentiating roof lines, and I think that
And floor plans.
they just had basically like a standard block kind of video, I don't know what you call
It
it,
was
like a
done
design
a year and a
element.
half
They all
ago.
look the same.
Yeah.
But we've already met with Tri-Point Homes, who I believe is going to be the residential,
Yep.
if
So
this
Kurt,
gets
let
approved.
me ask you specifics about that.
Sure.
Thank you. With what you have seen beyond what we're looking at today, with what you have seen with the homes that are being built, there is 4-sided architecture, varied roof lines, different, not all a flat front, different differentiations in the planes of the fronts of these, because they are supposed to be
Different elevations.
different elevations and not all a flat plane, like a big rectangular box is something that we definitely have been trying to not build anymore. So I wanted to verify that because of our code, hopefully, we have changed that and it should be.
They will be
More varied.
required to meet our architectural guidelines. I think that's the short answer to your question.
We are telling them ahead of time, and that's why Scott mentioned this, that's a building issue, and it's not a power you have. It's like,
Is it
I
a
don't think the
code that
board,
we need to
but
change?
you have changed the code. And so we informed they, out of due diligence and what we're doing now, because we have the new code, we're telling them what the lot size is, ahead of time at the preliminary plat. You need to look at this because we were concerned about the duplexes especially with the width of them. We had a few meetings with the proposed buyer, but they haven't submitted anything yet because there's not even lots there. There's not a way to submit anything. But they've already changed their plans completely. And what Scott's saying is they'll have to lose a few lots for the duplexes, and they're going to have to just move some of the They've had to move some of the townhouses when this gets to the final plan. It does, it only decreases the density by 2 lots. It's pretty much the exact same plan, but they've had to make some changes just to meet our design guidelines before they even submit. Because the products that they were showing us didn't work. And he can, we've talked to their engineers. So we are doing this now before we're even getting to the platting. So I think what I'm saying is that seems to be working and pretty well. And the same thing is happening with Hammond 6. So that, we caught the same issues and they're fixing it before they create a plat. So anyway, hopefully I answered your question, but yes, the townhouses looked very nice. I don't know if those are what they're gonna build, but what they were proposing, they look very nice. And we haven't seen the duplexes because the duplexes they showed us in a preliminary fashion did not work. And that's why they're just having to remove a few lot lines because there was just too much garage. Because, you can imagine with a ranch plan, since it's reduced to 1 story, but that's what the neighbors wanted, it produces more garage. And so,
We were at 51%.
so they need more width on the lots.
It'll only be 50%.
So,
Cost me 2 lots.
so anyway, so yes, and
All right, I know that these conceptual designs, a lot of times it's just what you can get the design firm to go ahead and create for you to, give people an idea. But I did cringe at the big, huge rectangular boxes because that is something that we were really trying to adapt, change our code to prevent more of those sorts of rectangular buildings. Let me see if I have any other questions. I think I'm just about done. Yes, I am. Thank you very much for your time and for your answers. I appreciate it.
Other questions?
Can you humor me and pull up that, the trail, a closer view? And so we can look and see if there's any possible way we might be able to, is that a 10-foot trail or an 8-foot, that's a 10-foot trail, isn't it? Along the west side?
Trail. If I can pull these up. It's not working. Maybe I should go.
The new section or the old?
The new one that's being proposed right now. I just want to see.
West Trail.
Yeah.
The West Trail. I just want to see, I'm sure, they got engineers, everybody's smarter than.
Don't we have a new standard?
Yeah, the trail has to be at
It's
least
10
8, yeah.
Okay.
8
Yeah,
to 10
the old
feet.
section's 8 if you go more.
So this is 10 feet. I'm just curious if, and I understand if we tried to move it to the east to accommodate for some trees on the west side, we would be giving up some of that berming to hide the drive-throughs and that type of thing. But I'm with Maureen. I think that, walking on the west side of this proposal is that it's gonna, without any shading ever, wouldn't be pleasant.
Just one little kind of note or comment. Effectively, the same situation exists immediately to the north. There are a handful of trees along that, but it's not like a tree line like that would shade the trail. Most of that trail is exposed to the sun. It's probably a little bit farther away from 287. The 287 right of way there is pretty significant too, right? So there's the edge of road. There's a whole bunch of CDOT right of way. So in terms of how close it is to 287, it's pretty far away, right? Because it's out of the CDOT right of way. But I think that's something you guys should discuss and consider. It would impact the berms that were designed.
But couldn't you move the berms too more?
You'd just be putting the trail on the parking lot instead of on the, open grass between 287 and the trail.
Look, the whole yard, there's a greenway there that's kind of a U shape. If you followed the trail to that shape, there would, I don't know, again, I'm not an engineer, but it looks to me like there would open up some space on the west side where not all the way along there, but you might be able to fill in some trees periodically. I don't know. Did you guys even consider that type of thing?
We sure did. which is physically, feasibly, and every other way, CDOT, easement wise and everything else, I don't think we can even get that space to even do it. It's not even an option, really, for us.
I mean, that's
If you were
definitely a
gonna do that,
comment
you
that
just have
we
to
have.
eliminate the berm.
And to foresee tree lines, is that what you're thinking? Tree lines, it's enough trees to shade the
No,
sidewalk?
no, I'm to a point where if you could follow that, we're kind of curving in some spots, and then,
The curving is the shape of the berm.
I guess
So-
that's true.
But like the trail all along Wagner is in the sun. I don't know
No,
that it's,
They don't have a tree line.
I would suggest that the difference between the north end, where it is behind the current neighborhood, is significantly farther away from the highway. And it's also a little bit below, it's not right at the level of the vehicles. As far as shade, no, it's very intermittent in that neighborhood above, but it exists. So, you know, you're not gonna be shaded the whole time. There, in addition though, beyond the shading, there is the dampening of some of the noise, just a little bit, by intermittent bushes, shrubs, that sort of thing. Doesn't have to be a whole huge screen. And then there's also the aesthetics of walking next to a highway versus having just a little bit of vegetation between you and the highway. Now, yeah, there is a distance between that property line and the highway. And question for you, parking spots. Are the parking spots built for high average, or maximum parking that you could expect on 3rd of July celebration day?
Well, the park, we approved a max parking standard late last year when we did all those code updates. That was part of them. So what that means is, you know, it wouldn't allow like Walmart, or I always think of Kmart growing up. They have like seeds of parking, Walmart's Kmart. But it wouldn't allow that kind of, it has a maximum amount of parking that's allowed. So that's in the code, but the parking is going to be reviewed with each site plan because, you know, he's not developing this, and then, like he said, he's not like condoing it out or renting it out and, you know, putting up the commercial buildings and then renting it out. So each one of these is going to come in on its own, and it'll have a parking, you know, the site plan will have parking with it. So we can't really review the parking without knowing what those uses are. So we will definitely make sure that there's enough parking for each one of those commercial uses, because, you know, if you build a traditional commercial building, it could turn into a restaurant, or, you know, maybe you build it as a Dollar General and it turns into, you know, like a Starbucks and a Chipotle. You know, the traffic, I mean, this parking changes dramatically, so we want to make sure that there's enough parking for
So
any of those outlets.
to extend upon that, if you were to add a 4-foot distance from the western property line to allow for a couple of trees, shrubs along that walkway, that means that 4 feet that you take from that western edge could be dispersed by compressing the rest of the development from east to west by 4 feet. So would there still be enough of an aisleway for those various parking spots so that people could back out and pull in?
Well, I don't think there'll be enough of the roads either.
We'd have to study that, but I can tell you it's not going to work for the residential section. And the reason I know that is because we've spent 2 meetings as staff with their engineer because of the design requirements and because of the fact they weren't meeting the width of the duplexes. We just couldn't get the 4 feet because it was getting into some of the utility lines, and it was changing the detention basin, and they couldn't do it without shortening the street, and then the street wouldn't be up to it.
I'm not concerned with the
So anyway,
residential. I'm concerned
but the
with
commercial, you know, is all, I think that, that's gonna require an engineer looking at it. You know, if I was the applicant, I would say I want my
So
engine.
4 foot is
I-
gonna
it-
require
it-
engineering.
I think maybe that could be a recommendation to look at it, but at this meeting, I don't know how we're gonna answer that
It would change the landscaping all along that western corridor. You could eliminate the berms, which we think the berms are
But you couldn't move the
better
buildings over?
aesthetically. I think it depends. I think the way it's laid out currently, at least conceptually, and again, these things will change on a site plan review, right? So there's outlots where they're gonna build landscaping. When you compress those lots, even by 4 feet, it can, if the drive aisle meets our minimum standard, compressing that by 4 feet means the drive aisle no longer meets the standard, which means you have to eliminate half the parking in order to make room, right? So it has this kind of cascading effect across the entire project, even just a 4-foot change. But again, I think without redesigning the site, or at least having an engineer look at what that would mean, I don't know if we can provide a good answer on that.
Yeah, I don't know that we could.
I do think, again,
Ask
this is
CDOT.
adjacent to 287, but it is,
Well,
there are a lot of trails that I think are less shaded. I know, I hear shade's probably not an issue, but like Nielsen Greenway doesn't have any shade anywhere, really. So I think what we're talking about is the buffer between 287 and the trails that.
And I should mention that, Scott here can tell you that we spent many extra months because there are a number of easements, and actually the Welch is on this property, they have an easement. So there's a number of easements on that corner and on that western side from CDOT, and CDOT was not letting this actually go forward until that all got straightened out. So, these are just really technical things that if you're concerned, I would just recommend that you make a recommendation to study that maybe as it goes to the final plat. To table it and to, hear it another time, because we can't give you that answer with that. Because I know the northern end, it changed everything dramatically. And they had to lose lots, or it was gonna change the infrastructure so much that it just wasn't, it just didn't make any sense. So lots had to be removed. So, I think this is just either gonna have to be a recommendation and you're okay with it going to the final plat with the planning commission, or you come back to this meeting, because we can't answer this right now. That's what I would say. Or we lose the berms, and I guess we think the berms would be, we think the berms would have more of an, I personally would think the berms have more impact on the community than a little bit of the trail is probably gonna be used next to a highway. So that's, I guess, my personal opinion. That's just my opinion, but I think those are your three options. I don't know if anybody else has, either lose the berms, do a recommendation to the planning commission, or table it, because I don't think we can answer it. I don't know that.
We can discuss that.
Yeah, we can.
Joe?
Nope, I'm good. I'm good.
Nope. Any other questions? Okay. At this time, we'll open the public hearing up to citizens. If there's anyone in the audience or online, Mr. Larson?
Lynn Larson, 205 Hubble Street. I've sat through the master plan, 2 master plan hearings, 1 preliminary plat hearing with the planning commission, and this particular hearing. I'm a little bit confused, Lonnie. Maybe not greatly confused, but a little confused. Perhaps it's only one of the applicant's slides and his statement associated with that slide. It's been my impression that the residences on the far north end are duplexes, and in the southern part of the residences are the fourplexes. And during the presentation of the applicant and this slide, he said that there were 16 one-story townhouses and 40 two-story duplexes. I would like clarification that that was a misstatement on the applicant's part. The discussion you just had, it sounded again like the duplexes are on the north side and the one-story duplexes are on the north side, and the two-story fourplexes are further south. Just raising that. Thank you for the nits.
Well, that was not
Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else? Anyone online? Okay, I'll close the public comment, bring it back to the board. Would someone mind clarifying that question of Mr. Larson's?
On the north end, Mr. Mayor, excuse me, we've used two names as well, single family and duplex. There'll be 16 of them.
They're single family attached.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Single family attached.
They're fee simple. You can call them zero lot line houses. You can call them
We don't know what
single
to
family
call
attached,
them.
You can call them duplexes.
They're
But
duplexes.
they're,
Attached.
basically
Single
duplexes.
family.
We don't want to use the word duplex anymore, is that what?
Is that what it is?
They're using,
Yeah, that's
they're
like a
using
affordable.
zero lot line houses.
Yeah.
So
Zero lot line sounds worse.
it's a little sexier, I guess. But they're fee simple, you know, full fire rated wall, you know. So.
I'm not sure that was any clearer, but.
That's clear. Yeah, north end, 16 duplex. How does the board feel? Looked like there was kind of two things. One is the roundabout, the other is the trail on the west end. I kind of going off of Kurt's suggestions, does anyone feel the need to table this? Is there a strong feeling that way?
I mean, as far as the trail goes, I would not want to table this, the progression of this commercial and residential development for, you know, just to see if we can get some, you know, plantings on the trail. So I would not be in favor of tabling anything with regards to the trail. I don't think that's appropriate.
No, and I think I appreciated the feedback from the applicant in town that they exhausted those options and landed where they did. And having the trail is better than not having one, and having the barrier between the buildings and the trail is nice.
Instead of walking against the back of a building, I think I'd rather be next to a berm. Yeah.
And I will say, if I may, I had this thought as we were talking, because I happened to be down in Westminster over the weekend. And along the Denver Boulder Turnpike, if you're aware, on Highway 36, there's a trail that runs along a significant portion of that. So I was curious, like, how far away is that? Because I remember thinking it was packed. And I told my wife as we were driving down 36, like, I'm amazed at how many people are out walking and riding a bike next to the highway. Because it's like right there. So I measured on Google Earth, it's about 30 feet off the edge of the pavement of Highway 36. And that trail was packed on Saturday. And so this one is almost 100 feet away from the edge of the pavement on 287. So I think, just for context, I don't know if it matters or not, but I think people will still gladly use it if it's there. That's my sense of it. Anyway.
There's not a lot of trees or shrubbery along that trail either.
There's not one that I saw. But, yeah.
Longview for Collins.
Anyway, I just had that thought, and I thought, I wonder how far away that is. So just for some context.
So it sounds like we're okay with the,
Yeah.
okay. What about the more information on the roundabout? Any strong feelings that way? Other than a condition?
I'm fine with the four-way intersection, lighted intersection myself.
I'm also fine with that, and I get nervous when we start talking about buying existing businesses and getting into deals where we're changing businesses and other people's lives for something where there's a secondary option, like putting in a light.
The only thing, my thoughts were that the MPO just has around 18 million in funding, and there was some requests by municipalities for roundabouts. There's a grant that transportation alternatives. No, anyway, there's a grant that, because roundabouts are better for air quality. So there's a thought that you get some federal funds to help out, but
I'm up for the, like,
that already passed, so it'd have to come back next year to look at that. Not guaranteed.
I'm more concerned about Quick Corner and Coffee House and the impact it would have on those two businesses. To have to financially uproot and then go into a more expensive scenario if they're not prepared for that sort of thing. I mean, we'd have to give them one really good sweet deal to really entice that, but that's why I was asking about, are we gonna be building pre-made structures that businesses like that could move into easily without the large overhead of breaking ground and building their own building and that sort of thing, so.
So are we in the comment section of this?
We are.
Can I make a comment?
No. Yes.
Okay, all right. It's very obvious that the developer, has put a lot of time, effort into this and has considered all of the things that we requested last time. You know, and there's the scenarios where there's no shade here, no shade in other areas and that type of thing. But they still were looking at it, seeing what they could do, and just to come to a conclusion that you know, that there's really not much we can do. And to ask the developer to move 4 feet, that would be redesigning the whole thing. And I would not want to ask somebody that's already accommodated us in a lot of different ways to do that. And that's the same with the roundabout. Although I am in favor of a roundabout, we do have staff that we need to listen to when they make a recommendation. That's what we pay them for, or the citizens pay them for. So I'm willing to back off on the roundabout as well and adhere to staff's suggestion and advice in that situation. And again, just this whole area, the whole project, and I'm not all that in favor of multifamily, 0 lot line houses or whatever you want to call them. I'm more into, you know, single family dwellings, that type of thing. But I understand that we need this type of residential build out. So my opinion, they've done everything we've asked. It's a very good looking. In fact, I think it's really attractive. I would be in favor of this.
Okay. It sounds like there's no major conditions. Yeah, let's just go around. Trustee Grace.
I mean, kind of echoing what Trustee Stevens was saying, I remember when we saw this about a year ago, a lot of concerns about, you know, sight lines and berms and what is this going to do to the town? And I think the developer did a great job kind of allaying those fears and helping deflate the concerns on that. A nice to have would be, there's a lot of trees over the parking lot. I know this isn't something they're developing, but I would love to see some covered parking out there, like solar panel parking, because those giant stretches of asphalt can do all sorts of nasty things, especially over the summer. If we could get any covering on it, it'd be a nice to have, but again, that's, I think, outside of that purview. Otherwise, it'd be cool to have a roundabout, but we kind of got into that a few too many years too late. Otherwise, it's a solid idea, as well as, you know, everybody else's concerns. I think it's a good step.
Okay. Trustee Hardy.
My concern is more about the commercial businesses out there and what can we do as a board to help incentivize or help out local businesses. I think about Quick Corner and Coffee House on that south side and how they're going to be impacted by any sort of competition or maybe lack of opportunity because of the financial constraints that would not allow them to move across the street to build out. So those are just the concerns that I keep having come to mind. Is there anything we can do to help encourage the small to medium-sized businesses that exist already to
You're looking more at that as the government should be looking at that, less as the applicant.
Yeah, I mean, if we can find something to help, and then that way the developer has a spot filled over there, but I don't know. Just trying to think about our small and medium-sized businesses and what we can do to help them take advantage of these new commercial zones that we're approving in.
Trustee Sarasota.
Just a couple comments. One was the trees. There were so many trees in this development. It was really beautiful. Like, it didn't feel commercial. It felt like downtown Berkeley. So thank you. That was beautiful. And then
Tree City.
yeah, it was like Tree City entrance there. That I didn't expect that. So thank you. And then like, how can we recruit you to do all of our 3D renderings of all of our developments?
Right.
Because I feel like that was just amazing. I wish all of our presentations were that visual. That was awesome. And then I don't really know how the process works with getting staff to get certain people into town, but I hear all the time people asking us to look for specific types of stores to come in, like the Chick-fil-A's and Sprouts and like the higher end commercials that that people, I mean, I hear it all the time. So I don't know what that process looks like, but I feel like if I don't say something, someone will.
We ask
Why
really,
didn't you
really
ask for a
nice.
Chick-fil-A? Well, you
I'm
had the
happy, I'm happy to
opportunity.
give you a quick, like, 2-minute explanation of how retail site development works if you're interested.
That might be useful for sure.
Yeah, so, especially larger businesses, we hear things like, Trader Joe's and Chick-fil-A and, some of those larger chains, they have what they call site selection criteria, some of which they share and some of which they don't. Some businesses, so if you go to the International Council of Shopping Centers convention they do every year, is like, square miles of commercial real estate booths. They just hand out their site selection criteria. They won't even talk to you if you can't say, yes, we can do that. And a lot of times what that criteria looks like, especially for business like Chick-fil-A or Trader Joe's, they're looking for a high density population within a very short drive time or a significant amount of average daily traffic. And when I say significant, we're talking like 30,000 cars a day minimum, which is actually even more than what's on 287. They're looking for high median incomes. They have very specific criteria. And so while they will locate in areas where every one of those might not exist, there has to be some specific reasons for them to do that. So the vast majority of businesses that we hear about, we don't even come close to meeting their site selection criteria. But that's not to say that they won't. A good example, like Chipotle often follows Starbucks. They have a similar demographic, and I only know this because I've met with Chipotle before in other situations where they said, like if there's a Starbucks there and it's doing really well, even if you don't meet our site selection criteria, we might locate there because that's an indication to us that we can be successful because we're going after the same kind of target demographic. So there's those opportunities, but typically they would just look and say, well, if you don't have, a 5,000 square foot suite on a corner end cap on an inline shopping retail center that has 30,000 cars a day driving past and 50,000 people within a 5-minute drive time that make $100,000 a year, we're not locating there. I mean, it's that kind of specificity. So anyway, that's kind of how retail site selection works for larger chains.
Do we send out any promptings occasionally to say, hey, are you look at our community and are you interested?
So before COVID, Walt has, they didn't have the ICSC convention. That's where a lot of those deals get made. It's a great way to make contacts. All of the regional site selection folks for all those major businesses are there typically. And like we went in 2018 and met with, I think, almost 30 people a day. Walt had meetings lined up for us every 20 minutes. It was actually kind of exhausting, just like every 20 minutes for 8 hours, every restaurant that would meet with us. And so he's gone back the few years before COVID, and then they haven't had one since. So they will have one this year.
And those are larger national chains?
Those are typically larger national. There are regional chains there, something like maybe a Ziggy's or a Potbelly's. That kind of business is often there too. They don't typically pay for booth space, so you also have to, you go through the attendee list of thousands of people and try to figure out who's there and try to get meetings set. But it depends.
Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Hyman.
Yeah, so I look at this and I think, thank God it didn't develop 15 years ago when it was going to be a Safeway with a big parking lot. And I look at it and I see our Mountain Avenue overlay plan really, giving the backbone to the design, with the buildings along the major streets and, with nice landscaping and architecture. I think, we had talked about, or I had mentioned, and Maureen had mentioned, the shopping center, retail center at the corner of Airport Road and Nelson Road, the southeast corner of that intersection in Longmont, where the buildings are on the street, the parking is on the interior, and it actually looks like a nice neighborhood retail center as you drive by. So I think it's really, I commend the developer, right? So for years, this was the property with the hole in the middle, right? Because there were at least two owners, but it wasn't all controlled by one landowner, which made it just absolutely impossible to develop, which is part of why it sat here for so long. But anyway, this is a huge step forward for Berthoud, right? This is one of the only intersections between whatever, Denver and Fort Collins that doesn't have major retail, and the fact that it's happening now, as opposed to 15 or 20 years ago when it was originally slated to happen, means that it's going to be a much higher quality, much nicer looking entrance to Berthoud. So, in an ideal world, would it be nice to have some landscaping between the sidewalk? Yes. But on the other hand, is that really going to help with the noise of cars driving 65 miles an hour? No. I mean, it would make it look a little better, but I agree with Lonnie. I don't think it's worth redesigning the whole layout for that. And I think the trail will be used regardless, just because it's going to be a major north-south connection. But anyway, I think it also shows that our neighborhood master plan process is working. The fact that, that was brought to us, we were able to tweak it, the neighbors had input. We've got these great berms on the east side, so that there's quite a huge buffer between the existing houses, even though those houses all got built knowing that this was going to be a major commercial center. To have that incredible buffer on the east side is really a benefit. And the same thing, limiting the duplexes on the north side to a single story to kind of buffer from the intensity of the shopping center to the existing neighborhood at Matthews Farm. I just think it's kind of like good planning in option, or good in action. And the fact that we don't have a group of citizens here protesting shows that the process has worked. In an ideal world, I'd really like to have a roundabout, and I certainly feel for existing businesses, but I also hate doing major development planning around things whose lifespan is limited, and that property is going to redevelop someday anyway, right? Those buildings are not going to be there long term. And that doesn't say anything about the businesses that are in them. That's just the reality is that corner was there when it was a corner, and 287 was the bend right in front of the gas station. So that gas station is a relic of that corner is a relic of I don't even know, the 40s, the 50s, so 60s. So it'd be nice if we could somehow facilitate the redevelopment and help, Quick Corner and Joe to Go, relocate and upgrade. But I realize that we don't have the budget to, do that type of redevelopment at this point. So in an ideal world, we could get a roundabout, but I don't think that we should stop or hold up this development for that, wishful thinking. So. Anyway, so I really support it, and I think if this can start and get open, I just imagine all of the revenue that will come into our 1% parks and open space and trails sales tax that we can spend on really, really cool amenities, or the next board will be able to spend on really cool amenities that we don't have now.
Another rec center?
The rec center is kind of at capacity, so I think you better start planning the expansion while you can. So, it seems to be pretty popular.
Will you in on it with me?
I'll be down.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem.
So, I agree with a lot that's been said. Although I really would have liked a little bit more of a buffer, it's not something that the developer should have to go back and redo. No way. I mean, that's just it's not reasonable. It's very, minor. I do like the way you guys have really listened to the public, and I agree, it's really a testament to the developer that we don't have anybody on the line asking to speak. We don't have anyone standing here. So yeah, like Trustee Hyman said, the process worked, because here we are, and we have I think, really nice buffer between the existing neighborhood, a nice buffer to the north with the single story. I've expressed some of my concerns about the ultimate design, so you're already aware of that. The roundabout, you know, I think a roundabout would be really beneficial from a standpoint of keeping traffic going. Although they say that there's not going to be any backup onto 287, just having going in and out of that intersection routinely on a daily basis, I do think we're gonna have backups, but there's a long approach lane on 287 that people can pull over on. But do I think that the line of cars is going to stop on 56 and not go down the ramp backwards onto 287? I think that's not realistic. I do think it's gonna back up. So as far as the existing businesses, I kind of think about if we were to buy them out and really give them a nice financial boost to be able to redevelop their land there, that might actually benefit them. Who knows? But I don't know how big their piece of land is, if there's enough room to redevelop it there and make it, you know, keep their gas tanks, but make it a nicer facility with taking their land and paying them for it.
And sometimes it's sentimental value, the fact their families have been there for so long, and that's where, that maybe they would be interested, but we definitely have heartache for people when they've been there for so long.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to necessarily take away somebody's livelihood, right? And say, here's a check and see ya. You know, that would be kind of rough. So I still think that from an environmental standpoint, not having traffic stop, from more of a pedestrian safety, potentially reducing the amount of traffic going straight up Meadowlark, maybe not by much, but somewhat. You know, potentially having a little bit of redevelopment of the quick corner with their consent. I still think a roundabout would be nice. However, you know, it sounds like the majority of the board does not want to pursue that, but that's my kind of rationale behind trying to go for a roundabout, and they may or may not be any valid points there at all, but that's just that's it. But otherwise, great development. Looks really good.
I agree with everything here, and the fly-through, I thinking that in the back, yeah, thinking that, I didn't say anything, but we don't, yeah, you always get an overhead sketch and you're promised the best, and I think over time I got used to just saying, yeah, right, you know? So having that, and then having you say that, you know, other than the look of the actual units, the layout is gonna be the same, so then you can kind of predict this is where things are gonna go, this is what it's gonna look like, so I really appreciate that, thank you. And I think the development will be great. I'm really looking forward to having commercial on this corner, and I think Trustee Hyman brought up some great points about if this was done before, what this might have looked like, and now there's actually some thought on driving in there, how to make it look better. So I think overall, it's great. It's great to see commercial coming in, and I'm glad this came up to you. I'm sorry you lost some tenants because of the delay there, but I hope we can get some more in there. I totally agree with Trustee Hardy. I think that's something the board needs to look at, but incentives, there's some new urbanist ideas from strong towns that could be used to help out existing residents transfer into a new unit. But I get the same pushback you're probably getting, or emails. Not a lot, but I do get that you know, how are you helping the new businesses with these developments instead of just competition? So maybe there's more ways we can help out. And the trail, I just agreed with your points on that, especially being on the my only thoughts about the trail would be, okay, it's nice to keep the view, and if you have it over there, then pedestrians get the view. But otherwise, it's an individual opinion. I like having that security, and you kind of brought that up, that buffer from the road. But I guess it's not a deal breaker for me, and Administrator Kirk brought up some good points about other trails that don't. The roundabout, I really think we should be looking at, and I would love to table this until we can get more information on that, and the costs and stuff. But that could take a while, and it doesn't sound like the board wants to go that way. So those are my thoughts overall. I agree. Great development. I didn't know if we wanted, Trustee Grace, if you're still interested in the board kind of putting a recommendation looking into the small covered parking.
Is that something that we could do, like requesting just like, even like solar panels or something? I mean, there's lots of trees in the parking lot, which is great, but I mean, seeing those giant acres of asphalt is just, it does a lot of bad stuff more than it helps, especially, you know, with summers getting more and more intense. I just figure if we could be preventative now while we're still digging land, it might help out in the long run.
We could recommend that the developer look into it.
I think most of those would have to be done at the site plan phase, right? So if he sells those off and say, let's just say it's a, whatever, Trader Joe's, it's probably not, but if, let's say it was Trader Joe's, they bought the lot and developed it, they would be the ones that would be making those improvements, not him. Does that make sense? Unless we were talking about like, well, and actually there's not really any parking lots on the residential side anyway.
So you get to handle that when the site plan comes up.
Nice.
But we can't, but we
The
can't
little I've been in
require.
that industry, the trees, you have to look at the trees fully grown, and are those gonna cover your solar window?
Right,
So-
right.
And how long to get there with our climate.
Plus, you know, leaves for fall and autumn and what that's gonna do. It's a lot of trees. It's cool. It's gonna be nice and shady, which is great because you're not gonna have to fight for the one lot far, far away from the entrance, just so your car doesn't cook. But
It'll make up for the trail along.
we had a berm there, man. Yeah.
Okay, so no need to,
So there's,
put a
we
recommendation
can't
in.
really do anything about the covered parking in the commercial lot then? Or is that's a design thing, or is that something we can put
That's
in?
really a development code issue related to the site plan development.
So nothing we can add into this then?
Change the code.
I wouldn't recommend that you do, but yeah, if you wanted to make that as a requirement of new commercial developments, that would be something we'd have to talk about adding to the development code.
Okay, so different fight.
Commercial buildings. yeah.
Well, that could be a point getter.
Yeah.
Earn points for building solar panel covered parking.
Yes.
Or trails.
Okay, so it sounds
Mayor,
like we're
Mayor
all
Garspec, I have
I saw a trail system with solar panels.
Bring it back. Yeah, go ahead, Trustee Stevens.
one more comment. I'm not sure if I agree with this recommendation for noise study. I know that there's an argument whether, you know, that's part of the ambiance of, you know, urban, you know, commercial, you know, you listening to cars. I don't know if that's really,
It's horrible there.
is it horrible?
It's really bad.
I don't stand there, so I don't.
I go out there
Well,
quite a bit.
I can picture it being very similar to the patios that you sit on 28th Street in Boulder, at like Mod Market and stuff like that, all those patios line 28th.
That
So I agree with
20th
this.
is way slower,
Dude,
sorry.
I agree
You
with
think we
this
should
study.
keep that
But you're still
study?
dealing with
But
accelerating.
my question is
cars,
what
so-
happens if whatever number it fails? I don't know what.
Yeah, yeah.
They raise the berms up or something. I think we should leave it for now.
There are some
Really?
sound mitigation strategies that could be incorporated if the expected ambient noise was
Just have a live band all
painfully
the time.
loud. I mean, it wouldn't be that hard to come up with, I think.
And it's a recommendation.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
it's
Is
not
there-
like hard and fast.
Is there anything that we can put in our own records or whatever to kind of mark out that ghost of a roundabout so that if it came back in the future,
Yeah.
we haven't built something on the corner that it would just be killed today, but could it be something that we pencil in somehow that,
It's a good compliment.
hey, you know, we might build this in 5-10 years when,
Yeah, I mean, that's how that works, right? It just is who remembers that was part of the deal. And it all just depends on when that occurs.
So actually, I have a question regarding that. You had briefly touched on, well, and we'll put a signal in when it's warranted. So at some point, could go with a signaled intersection? But, you know, as was suggested, keep some set of the easement available on those commercial lots that are there. So that in the future, should it be determined that a roundabout really is necessary, because this is my concern. Like, I don't wanna slow down your project. I think it's a great project, so this is why I'm so conflicted about it. I really wanna see it go through. However, the unintended consequences 20 years down the road, I will feel like a total heel if I didn't, you know, if I didn't follow along with that suggestion of potentially keeping
Yeah.
an easement available, should it be needed in the future, and if it's never needed.
I think the way their site is laid out, you might have to make some changes to the detention basin on their corner. But there's enough room on their corner to accommodate the roundabout.
So then how about, would staff support recommendation to keep right-of-way open on this development for a future roundabout?
I honestly haven't looked at it, so I think it may be worth talking about as a recommendation.
Maybe
for
staff
final
look
plat,
at,
but yeah.
look at preserving future right-of-way for future
Yeah, we
roundabout.
can look at that prior.
Cause I'm just looking
I
at
don't
the,
think it does, but I think we have to,
if
if
you
you
get
wanna
the
make that
Ludlow property
recommendation
going
for
on,
us to review prior to
Great,
final
we'll do
plat,
that.
we can do that.
you get that Ludlow property going in, I can see a roundabout going in Metal Arc, another
Yes.
roundabout going in where it's right in, right out for Gateway. We're gonna have large commercial on that south side, we're gonna have more
We can make-
residential on that south
We'll
side.
just build a quarter of the roundabout at a time.
And then,
And it'll really be a traffic calming device in the interim, because it'll slow the people way the heck down as they have to zig and zag
just
through,
trying to
Public
think
art.
ahead to the,
through the intersection.
Okay, so that,
bigger
I like
development to
that
the south.
yeah,
recommendation.
me too. That's our only one
That's a good
from
one,
us,
too.
right? We have others, but ours is just to recommend staff look at a roundabout, right-of-way preservation. on
That we can
Metal
do.
Okay.
Arc. Okay, any final thoughts?
I like the quarter of the, quarter of the
You can move on
donut at
that.
a time, so.
On Metal Arc. Okay, is there, if there's no other, comments here?
I'll move.
Okay, go ahead.
I move to approve the West Side Crossing preliminary plat, finding that it satisfies section 30-6-107B of the Bertha Municipal Code with the following conditions. Rapid flashing beacons across Highway 56 are required with the development of commercial lots. The northern duplexes or zero lot line units remain 1 story in height. Berms are included on the west side between Highway 287 and the development. An easement for gateway signage to be dedicated at the southwest corner of the development. And the following recommendations: recommendation for a noise study for the Southwest Plaza, recommendation for a further traffic safety study at Metal Arc Drive and Tundra Avenue, and for staff to continue.
Recommend staff look at a roundabout right-of-way on Metal Arc.
So noted.
Second.
Okay, trustee Stevens moved, trustee Hyman has seconded. Any final discussion on this? Okay, clerk, may I roll call vote, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Dower,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Soriselli,
Yes.
Trustee Grace,
Yes.
Trustee Hyman,
Yes.
Trustee Hardy,
Yes.
Mayor Karsberg.
Yes. All right, congratulations, thank you for coming out.
I do have to ask you one more question. Has anybody said you look like Billy Joel?
Someone said that today.
Really?
I
I thought you were gonna start singing when you came up here.
I've never done this before, and I've only come to learn that this process has given me a lot of gray hair.
Were you married to Christy Brinkley at one time?
Mr. Mayor, if I may just take 1 second?
Please, yeah.
I just want to say thank you. It's been a 3-year process with everybody. We've taken all of your great ideas, we've exercised them, tried them out, not only with yourself, but with the neighbors and everybody else. And staff has been wonderful. Chris put up with us for 3 years. I almost had to go crying to Chris a couple times because I couldn't take it. But I just thank you very much for all of it. And I'm glad to hear out of all of it that you thought it was a good looking project, because that's what's most important to me right now. It's a gateway entrance, you know, and it's gonna be really cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good drive home. Okay, now we'll move on to reports, and then we'll do a executive session. So, right,
I only left that on in case we didn't finish.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It says town administrator, so I think we're
We
done with that.
we can talk some more about that if you want.
I think we're good for now.
Only if it's gonna, well, whatever.
Okay, well, reports, start off with staff.
If I may, I'd like to have Ken come up and give you a brief report on the water main break. And kind of the experience we had there. As you know, it was kind of an interesting day. It actually was much less significant than I think it felt at the time, and that was a fortunate thing. Part of that was just a result of where the break was, how hard it was to shut down, some of the impacts that it had in the system that looked like contamination that were not. We went through this whole, as you know, and we have some significant communication deficiencies we've identified that we'll be correcting. So I wanted Ken to just kind of share with you what happened, and then I'll talk to you briefly about what we'll be doing moving forward. From a communication standpoint, he'll talk to you a little about operations and those things. But he's got some interesting pictures. There's a lot of mud and snow and
Sticky mud.
And if I remember, it was really cold that day.
Yeah, weather
it was
is
very cold that day.
Everybody can see the presentation? Yeah. All right. So this was on March 9th. Pretty much first thing in the morning. The contractor, Bison Ridge, was working on the Vantage subdivision, and I mean, like first thing in the morning. They probably just gotten their diesel warm and hit our 16-inch main transmission line. In the process of building or laying storm sewer for the subdivision project. The impact to the town system was immediate. At 8:05, our Little Thompson Water District interconnect activated, and it only activates when we're distressed. Our system is distressed, and so we started getting water from Little Thompson at 8:05. By 8:30, calls were coming into town hall. We basically had a lake and a river in the middle of Vantage subdivision, and so that's water flowing south away from the water line break, and then here's our little Lake Victoria we had there in the middle of the subdivision. One thing then the contractor kind of mobilized very quickly to berm up a bunch of dirt and protect the existing homes that were there, and then this was all. And then something noteworthy that actually worked pretty well. We put a lot of silt fence all over the place. In this case, it worked pretty well. Water was running down up against the silt fence, and it held. Had that not been there, then there would have been quite a bit of mud. No property, no water would have gotten into any property, but it would have been messy. So this is all, like 8:30 to 9 o'clock that you're looking at there. So this is a picture of our system. Here the line break took place there. As soon as we started getting calls around 8:30, we mobilized staff. First thing we did was we showed up here and shut this valve off, and then we went looking for a valve on the other side to shut so that we could isolate the line break and get in there and fix it. That's where we ran into a ton of trouble. There was a bunch of valves right here, and we just started shutting valves. We shut all the valves in the subdivision, and tons of water was still coming out of that break. We can't get in there and work on it until we can get that closed. The other thing that we were getting was this came from City Star Brewery. It was sent to me, actually, Mayor Collersbeck. I think you sent this picture to me.
Yeah, we were both on that email.
Yeah, and so what's going on here is our system is lopsided the way it is right now. We feed most of Berthoud through this main transmission line. We have a redundant supply here. It's only a 6-inch diameter line. So when this was shut off, we're feeding most of the town through the 6-inch, and that's actually, we had decent pressure here. People were saying it's a little lower than it should be, but we're still getting water. So I was pleased with that. But what it was doing was it was sending the water in a different direction than it's normally flowing. that stirred everything up, and that caused the stained water that we were seeing. Around let's see, now that was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Around 11 o'clock in the morning, we still had a ton of flow coming out. We posted to the town's website and Facebook explaining what the problem was and what we were doing to fix it, advised that citizens not drink the water. We continued to pursue to try to find a way to isolate the line, and we eventually did this valve right here, all the way down here. We closed that, and that finally started helping us out. And then as you can see there, we have flow basically stopped. Things are dried up. Here's the contractor. He's got a piece of, so this is 16-inch asphalt, I'm sorry, a 16-inch asbestos concrete pipe is what was broken there when he put his backhoe tooth through that. It broke very brittly, and that whole joint had to come out. And then we put in a piece of 18-inch PVC in there. And actually, the outer diameter of the 18-inch PVC fit fairly well with the outer diameter of the 16-inch AC pipe. It's
You
quite
said
a
we,
bit
you
thicker.
mean the town or the developer?
The developer's contractor did, yes.
You found that, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, that's his piece of pipe, that's his crews down there making this repair. Let's see. So, so we proceeded on, we made that repair, we got another notification out around 2 o'clock stating that we've made a repair and we're gonna start putting things back online again. And so that process was a long one also, because we got the line back in place, but we basically had to fill the 16-inch line from the south north and basically burp out all that air that was in the pipe when it drained. So that takes a long time. You got to fill it up slow, or you trap air inside. So you got to have some patience with that. So around 4:50, we had it pressurized, and we were able to start opening valves and put the system online again. Had the final post of the day at about 4:50, and then the operations got the crews that were filling the line, flushing and everything. By 9 o'clock, they texted me and indicated that everything was fully functional, pressure tested, and all the valves were open. Typically what you do at that point is you start flushing. You've upset the line, you're gonna have some of that murky water, you wanna flush it out. It was too late and too cold. We would get a lot of water in the road, so we waited until the next morning. And then what you're seeing here is all the areas, all the sites that we flushed the following day. You start here, you start close to the line break, and then you work your way out as part of a standard flushing process. You also focus that on where we received these complaints, this anecdotal information coming in to us. We also, during that period, we would test for chlorine residual. All the chlorine tests met the specs for chlorine residual in potable water, and then we pulled samples, and then those samples were sent into a lab and we tested for coliform. All those tests came back negative with no coliform colonies present. So that all checked out very well, and by, let's see, 2 o'clock the next day, we gave the all clear and everything was basically done. So I kind of like looking at the lessons learned kind of in 3 categories here. Whenever anything like this happens, management comes and says, what are we gonna do to make sure this never happens again? And then you may say, well, you know, this is buried utility, it's left, nope, 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 what are we gonna do? Never gonna happen again. So you focus everything on this first bullet, and that, the first bullet is important. The second bullet, it's a buried utility, something is gonna happen, it could break, it's an old pipe, somebody could get into. What are we gonna do in the future to make sure that things work better if it gets hit? And then lastly, you know, what did you learn about your infrastructure through this kind of event? So the first one of the things that was very obvious to me is our utility intelligence is lacking. We don't know where our pipes are. They're not mapped correctly. We don't know where our valves are. We don't know which ones work, which ones don't work. So we really need to focus on that. We have a GIS system. That's not bad, but it needs lots of work. Actually, I got, it'll be 2 weeks. I have an engineering tech coming on board who's very experienced with GIS and will start working immediately. That'll be one of his major tasks. We need to get a handle on where all of our valves are. We need to exercise them and make sure that they're going to work when something like this occurs. We need to flush and routinely send the flow in our system the other direction so that we don't have an event where it stirs up a lot of sediment. That's a standard thing that most systems do. We need to focus more and more actively on the utility locate process. The engineers spent a lot of time and effort reaching out saying, hey, where's your utilities at? We need to put a similar amount of effort into helping them do two things. A, demonstrate to them where it's at, painting it on the ground and stuff like that. And where we're not sure, then we need to raise our hand and say, we need to pothole that and make sure that utility is located concretely in the field before any equipment is mobilized. That's critically important. And we got a lot of people out there who can make that call. You know, during design, during inspection, during operations. As far as what we can do so that we respond better with future emergencies, I thought we did a pretty good job on considering on wrapping this up. But, you know, a few things. We need to communicate better. Having a notice, it happened first thing in the morning, and at 11 o'clock we made our first notification. That's too late. The tendency is to wait until you have good news, and that's a mistake because things are happening, people want to know why. So get that notice out early. I think we need to explore other forms of communication where we use Facebook, we use our website, and actually I got some good feedback. People are reading that and looking at that. There's other things out there. There's a cell tower technology that allows us to push things out to focus groups. I think Chris is up to speed on a lot of that, probably more than I am. But I think we need to look into those systems. Those could be very useful, especially if we want to have focused communication. Berthoud has some kind of quirky pipes out there. The 16-inch AC, I've never seen that in the Front Range anywhere. What's that?
It sounds like us.
Yeah.
I think we still have some wooden pipes buried in places.
Yeah, well, the only one I know about is on the front porch of the water plant. But you know, the 16-inch, we need some parts that'll work with that part. It's repair couplings, fittings, stuff like that, and we need to have those on hand. I can order those now. We'll get them a year and a half from now or whenever with the supply chain issues. But then we'd have them when something like this would occur again. And then the other thing I learned is that system is in pretty good shape, actually. I diss it here saying it's got weird pipe, but this is the first time. Chris indicated that this is the first one of these he's experienced in his tenure, and that's years. I mean, Aurora had a more severe pipe break than this yesterday, and then they had another one a month ago. I mean, this happens all the time in a lot of communities. And this was a contractor-caused problem. As I look back on our records, I see very few line breaks due to deterioration. I think that this town system is pretty sound and robust considering. So that's a good thing. It does need some work. We need to get in. I kind of explained the system was lopsided. We need to work on north-south and then also east-west redundancy so that when these occur, we can always backfeed in another direction when we have to take something down. We need to take better advantage when we're out doing development construction. That's the time that you need to get in there and drop valves where you don't have them now. And that wasn't done for Vantage. Had it been done, we would have been able to isolate that in a half an hour and could have had it back on before noon. So anyway, that's.
Can we ask some questions or?
Sure.
So I think we should also look at what did we learn about our infrastructure, but also what did we learn about development? And you hit some of those is have someone on site where they're putting these in so we can verify. It's happened at 7:30, so I mean someone was working at 7:30 at night? With
In the morning.
In the morning.
Oh.
And we do have construction inspectors on site. They don't watch construction all day, every day, because it's not economically feasible. When there's when there's work being done on major systems, they're out there watching, they're out confirming installation, at periodic times throughout construction. This one is an interesting one because the contractor, I understand, had potholed the line north of there and had a pretty good idea of where it was at. It wasn't where they expected it to be, or the person doing the digging didn't know where it was supposed to be. I don't know that we had marked it appropriately, and
We didn't.
And so, in their defense, they weren't expecting there to be a line there. They weren't expecting a line to be there. And so, there's a lot of those details that we can clean up. It doesn't mean that you're always going to miss pipes.
Yeah, no.
A lot of broken pipes during construction. Actually, we've had very few here, I guess is what Ken alluded to.
It's a really good thing.
It's a good thing.
I got so much pushback, especially at the 2 library meetings I was at. And it's all growth, right? So this is a good thing to blame it on. And that was caused by construction. So your reply is, yeah, absolutely, I think a couple more of those, it's, people are already fed up. So any way we could have like a deadline, we're looking at this, the communication notification, it's great we're looking at it, but going back, hey, we're going to follow up and say by July or August, sign up for this because by July or August, we're going to send out some notifications and stuff. It can't be a year or two from the date. I just hope we do follow through with some of those conversations you guys had. I know Aussies, they ran out and luckily found bottled water. They made all of their rice from bottled water, but they didn't have that. They'd have to close. Something happened to A&W. I didn't know the details. And then Aussie's plumbing backed up that night. And I just showed Maureen, but the picture from Aussie's is much more dark than what City Star had. And that could be their plumbing too. I have no idea about any of this, but I think that it was safe to drink, or this is a precautionary thing. I think there's maybe some health cautions in the very beginning, but there's always the caution of how bad this looked, So long story short, I think, this is going to happen, but it did happen because of development, because of construction. It wasn't age. And that's something we need to be really conscious about. And I think we need to look at these lines proactively so this doesn't happen again. I'm really glad you're here. That's another point.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Some of this, anyway, I'll stop there. I think
the short answer is we agree with everything you just said.
Yeah.
He fits in the first bullet point.
Well, so my question is, on all of the new infrastructure, how is that being documented so that we know, do we know where everything is for all of the developments in process?
So a lot of things have taken place in the last year as far as how we review and inspect and manage development construction going in. And so as I kind of went through with NOAA, with baseline engineering, you know, the various projects that are in place right now, and then hit and Mark, who is the field guy. These kinds of vulnerabilities elsewhere. That we identified, there's a couple of things that are is new construction undergoing right now that we're taking a hard look at. Actually, we're meeting with Northern Engineering Thursday to talk about other issues with Vantage. The not setting valves on the 16-inch line, that was one issue. There's some other problems with that. There was some of the Heron Lakes projects that were approved, a couple of years ago that are just now under construction that deserve another look also. So we're dusting things off and going back in and taking a look at things that are quote final plans and approved and they're out under construction right now.
Yeah, well, we definitely are aware of some issues with some fairly new developments, and it seems like we should take a hard look at, Heron Point, Prairie Star, Hammond, and just make sure that all of that is really well documented, which it's great that you're hiring a tech to really map all that stuff. If Tom Jones was here, he would have told you exactly where that line was. So
I will say our newer developments, even prior to a year ago, we were receiving as-built plans and those sorts of things prior to closeout. The concern that I have now is how good are those as-built plans? And so I think that's some of the things that we'll be looking at and dusting off and confirming. And certainly, as Ken alluded to, we've made some major changes to our engineering processes over the last year, largely to deal with some of these types of things. So
when do you think this could be? I mean, Whitney sent that detailed email to other communities that have processes for this outreach.
Are you talking about communications?
Right.
I think we'll have a new communications plan in place before the middle of the summer
Okay.
for exactly how we'll do this.
Do you know how much water we lost by chance?
It was about, it was over 1 million gallons, but shy of 1.5 million.
So that's what, like 3 point something acre feet.
Yeah, it's a day's run. Yeah, that was no, it was a little more than a day's run in the wintertime.
Okay, are we picking, is the developer picking up the tab on that? Do they have an insurance policy?
So again, if there's a line that we own that's not properly marked, they're not liable for hitting it.
Oh.
So, if they didn't know it was there, we didn't tell them it was there.
I keep forgetting that crucial point.
Yeah, so I mean, so it's easy to be mad at the contractor, but I think there's practical limitations to how responsible they are.
Okay.
It doesn't mean they couldn't have done things that may have prohibited that line from being broken.
If it's not located or located correctly, there really isn't much they can do because they're gonna dig.
They're gonna dig, and that's the whole point of calling ahead for locates, and all the utilities are us and the dry utilities like electric and gas and telecommunications. They go out and mark those lines specifically so that people don't dig into them, or that they know where they are and they can dig carefully around them.
But they did do
in
that.
In this case, that line wasn't properly marked.
Right, okay. So, I mean, okay, sounds like you guys are on it. I just want to make sure, I mean, this could happen again in the rest of Farmstead or somewhere that you never know.
And I've been fortunate, as Ken mentioned, in the 4 years I've been here, this is the first major line break we've had. And I think our infrastructure is in decent shape, and despite some of the engineering deficiencies we may have had, we've been fortunate not to have those problems. Some of that I think was ad hoc, right? Is people who had a lot of existing knowledge about where the systems were and could go out in the field and go, oh, no, don't do that. That's where a line's at. Or, things that we don't, because we've lost some of that institutional knowledge, we just don't have that. And so we're relying on maps and plans and GIS systems that may not be wholly accurate. And so the better data we can have about where our infrastructure is, and locating it properly via GIS in particular, that'll help alleviate a lot of those problems in the future. And some of that you just learn the hard way when you're out in the field and you find something that's there that you didn't know existed. I've had lots of experiences in my career where we've done that. You know, and that happens with dry utilities too, you know, I mean, I remember a gas line being hit in the middle of a plaza project that we were doing in my last community that it wasn't marked properly, and so, you know.
Yeah.
The big,
I mean, that's 6
don't
homes.
always know exactly where their stuff is either, but
That's 6 homes total water consumption over a year.
it's a lot of water that was lost.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What, reverse 911, was that part of the discussion?
It is. So we'll be working with and meeting with the Larimer Emergency Telephone Authority, LEDA, to better understand the capabilities that we don't understand today. We can use the system and send out emergency notifications to our staff list. That's about the extent of our knowledge today. That system is capable of a lot more than what we're prepared to use it for today, but that's something, one of those things that we'll be stressing over the next couple of months is getting that training done for staff and understanding better what we need to do to strengthen that system locally. We also have the ability to send out emails through Express Bill Pay that we did not actually have access to at the time of the event, which is why we didn't. But can, it's still an abbreviated list. It's only about 1/3 of our total customers, so it's not, you know, for water issues, it's not a great list today. But one of the things we'll be doing is kind of a sign-up drive to get people to get into that system and provide their email address. We have at least a direct email address. You know, reverse 911s are tough unless they can be pretty tightly located. We don't blanket the whole town with emergency notification. We have a line break. Most of the time, a line break is not nearly as significant as this major 16-inch transmission line. If a main line, you know, if a 6-inch main line breaks in a street and you can isolate it on either end of a block, you're only talking about impacting 8 homes or something, right? I mean, this was a unique issue that's unlikely to happen regularly in the future, and certainly now that we have a better understanding of what the issues are out there, those things can be prevented for some of these main transmission lines. But we need to know how to use LEDA more effectively than we do today. We need to strengthen our email contact lists. And between those two things and then the ability to distribute information via social media and our website, those are really about the best that we can do. Short of going and knocking on doors, which is actually what we would typically do in a smaller line break scenario. You just go knock on the 8 doors that have their water shut down.
Yeah.
I had a thing. First of all, speaking my language with all your preventativeness and your redundancy and backing up your systems, absolutely supporting that in every way possible. And while absolutely the event was terribly unfortunate, a lot of water missed, in the grand scheme of things, we're possibly dodging a bullet. Now, granted, it was about 6 homes worth of water for a full year, but wintertime, we're really good at reusing and repurposing that water, so net loss is kind of negligible. But we've gotten to unearth all sorts of other problems just barely beneath the surface that are going to be preventative in the future. Nobody got hurt, which was a huge part. If there was no major property damage, because this is all on stuff that was getting built in the first place, we can just kind of put more dirt on it and get it rebuilt. It's kind of shine light on all sorts of other shortcomings. So while, yeah, it was a terrible incident and all sorts of bad things came out of it, at that moment, we're going to see better things because we got to see, oh, oops, this is bad, this is bad. We got a lot of improvement to do. So just wanted to comment on that. So
That's a great.
I would call that half full.
well,
Yes.
we get to
Well,
learn.
you're not
so
to
much
compensate
as-
for my half empty. So
Well, we get to
that.
we get to learn a lesson.
Yeah.
We get to learn a lesson, and it's one where we actually all get to look good at it instead of like have, oh, you screwed this up or you screwed that up, and nobody needs that.
Yeah.
It doesn't do anything.
I think that. Yep. I totally agree. I
So-
totally agree. Thank you.
3 acre
And
foot
really,
empty.
I think some of those issues we may not have identified
Right.
had this not occurred. And so, and certainly not as quickly as we obviously are now. So I think, you know, I appreciate that perspective, and I think the glass is both half empty and half full.
Yeah.
So I think that's a reasonable way to look at it.
There's a manager for you.
And this is
But it's true,
this
right? I
is
mean,
a permanent fix, it's not a temporary.
it's like I've told.
Explain this is a permanent fix, it's not a temporary.
The fix that we did.
PVC pipe in.
Actually, it could be, but actually what we're likely gonna do is dig that back up again and put a valve right there.
And fix it with like the same pipe and all that instead of.
I'm not sure. We'll have to lay out how things go. I don't think we're gonna find 16-inch AC to use for it, so, but in my mind, ductile may be a little more appropriate. So it's kind of if you do it all over again, which we probably will, I think I'm gonna push for ductile iron pipe and ductile iron fittings, for all the, and then butterfly valves on the 16-inch on either side of that.
In ductile line, can you explain that to me?
A ductile iron pipe?
Oh, ductile iron, okay.
Yeah, a ductile.
Trustee Sorcelli was also gonna say something.
Oh.
Sorry, thank you. I was just gonna say, I fully agree with your perspective, and I feel like this is a learning opportunity, and so I'm grateful that now we get to put systems in place that reinforce those things so that we can be more effective in laying out those different mapping systems, and as as leaders, I feel like it's our opportunity to show our community that we're growing together. It's not like a contentious issue, it's like we're all learning and growing and improvising together, and how can we be more proactive instead of reactive to emergencies, because it's going to happen. Emergencies are going to happen. Mistakes and human error are going to happen, whether it's construction or whether it's someone in an older property that, you know, does damage to a line or something, right? So I think this is an opportunity for our community to say, hey, we're moving forward, we're learning new things. How can we be more proactive instead of reactive to emergencies? Which I really appreciate your perspective on getting LEDA training, because I think working with the first responders that Berthoud is one of the lowest sign-up rates for LEDA. And so we have a huge opportunity to push a huge marketing for everyone in Berthoud needs to be signed up for reverse 911. Because if you're not signed up, you don't get contacted. So that's the first, to me. The first step is let's make sure people know what it is and how easy it is to get signed up. And then you guys can work on the mapping system for how tightly knit you could get where you want to notify and that thing. So thank you for the presentation. That was a lot bigger incident than I think I did.
Yeah, big deal.
All right.
I just wanted to say, all of the items that you suggested about operations, checking all the valves, all the pipes, and how the interconnectedness of the whole system is, reversing it. Wow, there's a lot that we weren't doing, and I'm very glad to have you here.
Oh, well, thanks.
So, thank you.
Again, glad to be here.
Proper distribution system maintenance takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
Awesome, midsummer.
Thank you.
Midsummer,
Okay.
we'll have some significant changes made. I think both training complete and some new procedures in place.
Fantastic.
I think to piggyback off of what Mike said,
At least it wasn't gas.
one of my favorite, not to wax too poetic here, but one of my favorite Kobe Bryant videos is him talking about failure, and he says, failure doesn't exist. I've never seen failure because I've always learned and gotten better. And so I think the failure for us would be if we didn't learn from this, if we didn't institute new procedures and policies and operational structure, I think, which we will. So we're really fortunate we didn't have property or life issues, damage to either of those things, and now we can learn from it and get better. Yeah, cool.
Mayor Pro Tem. For reports.
Oh.
You're looking at me like, is that my name?
Sorry. Okay. First, thinking about our conversation earlier this evening, the idea came to me. First of all, thank you, Trustee Hardy, for coming up with the suggestion for maintaining the right-of-way for roundabout. That really solves a lot of concerns for the future. So that was an excellent recommendation. The next was concerns for trying to attract potentially or support more small businesses, specifically restaurants. We do have the old town hall development. Putting a kitchen in, you said, runs about $100,000.
We fully expect to create space that would be suitable for restaurants at Old Town Hall, assuming that project moves forward.
Would there be any benefit for economic development to encourage a restaurant to come to town by the town supporting the installation of some, or the promise of installation of some kitchen facilities, commercial kitchen facilities?
Our incentive policy that you adopted 2 years ago, maybe, allows us to target incentives for high priority businesses, of which, you know, new restaurants, I've heard are obviously one of them. And so I think there are opportunities for fee waivers and other things to help offset some of those expenses under our existing incentive policy. And we have offered those in the past when we've had conversations with restaurants. It hasn't been enough to move their needle, but maybe that's something we need to consider as well. Is how much is really necessary to kind of move the needle on.
To Tim and Maureen's point, to existing restaurants too.
Yeah.
You know, you got the La Casita that's just limited by a terrible building that could possibly move if there's an incentive.
Businesses that are, it's always interesting because it's hard to incentivize moving from one space to another, but businesses that are expanding as a result of their move would absolutely qualify under our incentive policy. Because if you move from one space to another, you create a vacancy.
Then we have to find another restaurant.
Yes, and then you got to find another restaurant, right?
Like hermit crabs.
But if you're expanding, certainly, and updating, modernizing, those are things we want to do.
So next, Youth Advisory Commission, they are moving along with their Summer Scorch Fest. So it'll be officially known as the Berthoud Youth Advisory Commission Summer Scorch Fest, and it is. Have you signed any documents yet?
I have not received anything for signature, but I know they're working on it.
Yeah, they're working on it. So it looks like it's going to be the 29th and 30th, is it? Friday.
That sounds right.
Friday and Saturday, July.
Friday evening and kind of Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, Friday evening from 4 to 7, so 3 hours, and then Saturday it will be from 2 to 7. So those are the hours and days for the Summer Scorch Fest.
Awesome.
So definitely share that with you know, the teens that you know in your lives and in your neighborhoods. For a little later this summer, they will start advertising here and getting the word out. Probably in another month or two, they'll start advertising it. So that's moving along. It's very exciting. Lastly, what I would like to do is anyone who has any burning questions or desires or discussion topics for Thursday. Anything that you want to get in for a Thursday study session, if you could get that to me by tomorrow morning, like at 9 or 10, so I can kind of put things together and get it over to the town, just for kind of a structure for the discussion on Thursday evening for the Metro District Model Service Plan discussion, so everybody can kind of get their questions and concerns out there early so we can address them directly.
And for what it's worth, you know, we talked about submitting any questions you had. We did receive a list of questions from Trustee Hyman. We'll be prepared to answer those. We're hoping to get a memo out to you by tomorrow, just with some brief bullets in answer to those, and we can expound on those on Thursday. So I think we'll cover the answers to those questions. Any others that you guys have, obviously, and then we have some questions we'd like to get answers from the board about as we go through that discussion and talk about, you know, what adjustments do we need to make to that policy, if any, and then bring it back to you for consideration and adoption.
And I do have 2 very basic legal, or 3 very basic legal questions that I will send to you that I think you already know the answer to, but we just want to verify. So I'll send this to you directly. And that's it for me.
Awesome.
All done.
Let's see, I did 2 library meet the mayor thing. They bring in someone every month, and so they brought me to talk about town stuff for a dinner and then a breakfast. And yeah, like I said earlier, primarily the majority was related around growth. They were very respectful, about half people that were relatively new, half kind of long-termers. So yeah, this kind of came up at the same time as the water thing. So I think it's something we're already all conscious about. So it just kind of reinforced that when people are directly like, what are you doing type thing, and you're trying to be respectful back. Yeah, let's see, I met with CDOT Director Shoshana Liu at the Lambert County LEDA building today, which I never even knew where it was, so. And we had a good conversation about Northern Colorado. Kind of we're putting all of our eggs into I-25. We still need segment 5 funded, so that's 56 to 66. And I don't think the communities want to go around again and put up personal funds, so how can we use federal funds to try and help get that done? And there's a little bit of back and forth about transit. You know, there's some individuals in Weld that have a tough time with it, and why is the state focusing on Mustang and these mobility hub type things? Other than that, yeah, it was a good meeting, and I don't have any. Oh, I just wanted to thank May. I know you're doing a lot of work prepping for birthday days, so meeting with some people, trying to tie it into the history, moving it over to Wagner, so that'll be some exciting moves. So
I want to talk about that, but I don't know the proper way to do that.
if you don't vote on it, you can
With a
just
different
set it
time.
up. Yeah, yeah, no, it's
I
fine.
would like to talk about that tonight if I get a chance.
Oh,
Yeah, you're skipping us.
Right over
Oh.
everybody else.
I'm the most important. To
You're
me, it's like
forgetting-
1 a.m.
You're forgetting Friday.
No,
It's not even 11.
Friday.
9:15.
I know, I said I'm feeling like it's 1 a.m.
This is
Friday,
past
you forgot
for
Friday.
so long.
Oh, you're,
No, Mayor's Entrepreneurs
oh,
event is this Friday.
so can I finish and then we'll go back?
No, I think you should talk about your event on Friday.
Okay. There's 2 more things there, I just forgot one. After Jeff yelled at me. Yeah, it's not my event, it's the Mayor's Entrepreneurial Summit. It's, you guys are all invited because it really is an elected official event. And the name should change to what it reflects. But it was started by mayors and travels around every year, and staff knocked it out of the park this year. It was Walt Elish who said, hey, why don't we reach out to the governor? Long shot, asked Chris if that's cool, and Chris said, probably not gonna get it, but why not? You know, you never know till you try. And then the governor's office responded that, yeah, we'll be in the area. We'd love to stop by if you can do it on this day. So pretty awesome that we reached out to get that done. And the other lineups are the speakers, City Star, Ursa Major, Agile,
Living Inc.
Living Inc. So really cool to hear from everyone who started up from their garage to people that have pretty advanced funding. To hear all the aspects of how a business grows. And then Walt's brought in a good team too to really help out. SBA, also what's going on in Estes. Estes will give a brief presentation. They're doing a lot of good entrepreneurial work. And then they'll end with the governor's speech. So it's a great day. I know some of you guys can't attend because of other commitments, but if you can attend, it'd be really great for all of us to kind of hear that and brainstorm what we can do. Bring it back, you know, some of these ideas to birth it. One of them, I didn't say anything, but Strongtown's emails you send, that guy wrote a book, and one of his suggestions for helping out local businesses is stop building to a finished state, meaning that let them kind of look at it like the 1800s when a business came in. They would do the front like a facade, and over time it would get improved. But if you're requiring all these up front, it's too much money for a business to be able to get a loan for. And then the other thing the developer was already doing, it was stop leasing things out and let people buy it, so there's actual equity in the community. So I think there's stuff we can do to help out entrepreneurs. And also my historic preservation plaque got replaced, better than ever.
Yeah.
I got the strongest one in town now, thanks to Conway Construction.
The only bolted historical plaque in the entire town.
I said, Jeff, just glue it back together. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna get it fixed. And yeah, now it's the strongest ever. So. Cool, that's it. Thank you. I'm sorry I skipped over you guys. Trustee Hyman.
No report.
Trustee Stevens.
No report.
How far did I go? All the way over? Forget all you guys?
Actually, the only thing I'd like to say, and I know it's
Blame it on the water conversation.
I know it's redundant and doesn't need to be said, but I'm gonna say it anyway. The thing about this water break, the one thing is how important an emergency response system is at all levels. And that's something that May brought up 2 years ago and something that we haven't really pushed. And I think that just kind of solidifies how important that really is. That's all I got.
Great point.
I guess my only report's more of a request. When you're coming south on 287 and you hit Berthoud Parkway and you're gonna turn south. So that turn lane, around rush hour time, your eyeballs fry because there's the sun setting right over the mountains. And I always thought there was supposed to be a left-hand turn indicator on that leftmost post. So you don't have to stare at the sun to see if you're indicated to clean left. So there isn't one there. I guess my question is that something that we are responsible for? Is that something CDOT needs to fix?
That's CDOT's intersection. I will say as a brief bit of report, we did have a meeting with CDOT. We've been asking them for a lot of changes along 287 from 56 to 60 for a long time. And most of the time their response has been, well, if you guys will pay for the studies, we'll do whatever you want. Anyway, so we've done some analysis along that stretch, but they're going to look at the entire stretch. They've hired a consulting engineering firm. They've developed a scope of work. We met with them to refine that. We added some details to it. But they're going to look at the entire stretch 287 through Berthoud, basically starting at County Road 4E all the way up to up to 60. And so they're going to be looking at speeds and geometries and signals, and signal timing, and a whole host of things through that effort. So we'll bring that up.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Nothing to report from historic preservation other than we still have some vacancies available.
Yeah, that was on the, yeah. Just something we needed to do that in detail.
So if anyone's interested or looking for people there.
Establish Historic Preservation Interview Committee. Right, I guess let's do that right now.
Other applicants?
But
There are 2 applicants for 2 vacancies.
How many openings?
2.
Done.
They should still get interviewed.
It was a joke, son.
Anyone, so what's the, do you have a day planned at all? Probably not.
Tentatively the 25th of April.
25th of April. Does anyone want to volunteer right now without even knowing the day?
It needs to be,
After, that's a Saturday.
There's only 3 of you that
There's
can
only
sign
3
up
of
for
you.
that, so.
Oh, it's a Saturday though.
April 25th?
Well, should we wait till after
Did
the?
you say 23rd or 25th?
The
Do we need-
25th.
Okay,
Monday.
yep, we're good. I'll volunteer if no one else does.
Do we need to do that now or should we wait till after the new board?
I'm just looking off of our agenda. I don't know. Do you want to wait till the new board clerk or do you want to do this now?
If the board is more comfortable waiting until the new board is sworn in to give them the new board the opportunity to participate in the process, that would be perfectly appropriate.
I'd say leave the new board with a full slate, but whatever. I mean, we've been waiting forever to fill those slots, so I wouldn't delay, but I'm not volunteering to interview.
I would do it before I'm over with, or possibly over with.
All right, well, I'll put my hat in the ring,
50-50
I think,
chance.
unless, Mike or Lonnie can commit right now. Let's just wait till the new board.
I cannot, that's the end of the month,
So,
that's usually on
okay.
my.
I move to have Tim and Will interview on the 25th.
Is that even something we can
My
motion?
Second.
Okay. All right, let's vote on that.
do we have to vote?
There's a motion and a second, come
Oh
on.
my
I
good
don't think you
lord.
need to vote. You guys have just appointed interview committee members.
Okay.
You already both said you would do it, so I don't
I'll
know.
do it.
All right, is there anything else? I thought it was after the election.
So that's just to
Yes.
start, well,
Oh, go ahead.
but,
Am I missing someone?
Yes,
Yeah,
May.
Berthoud Main
May
Street.
needs
It's not
to
done
talk.
yet.
Oh, she's
Tim's
been
not done yet.
waiting
Okay, everyone be quiet. Tim, go ahead.
patiently.
the only other thing I would have to report would be nothing really, but it's Berthoud Main Street doesn't have anything new to report as anything else.
Yeah.
Other than we've got some underlying things that we're hoping to plan that we're looking at there. And we also have board positions available there, if anyone's interested.
Right, good points. I'm sorry, I keep thinking, so the water thing got tied into this, and when people are done talking about the water, I was like, okay, that's the report. But no, sorry, go ahead.
That was important. Well, first, I've had a group of senior citizens in the town that have been here for a long time come to me and ask how they can organize to bring forward their concerns and ideas to the board and to staff, because I think there's a growing list of things that needs they have that they feel like their voice isn't being heard. So if you guys have suggestions on what that could look like, I just recommended that they get together and meet and then come present to the board the issues, and then that way
They
they're
could be our
being
senior
heard.
advisory.
They could come every single meeting and be persistent about them. So if you guys have any suggestions on what that looks like, but a lot of them are very serious issues like cost of living and not being able to use a rec center because of the cost, or varied things, so, if you guys have ideas on what we could do to help support that, let me know. And then birthday, I'll try to be delicate about not wearing too many hats at one time, but I do want you guys to know that it is gonna be moved to Wagner Farm, which is really exciting. And the thing that I'm the most excited about is that, with digging in with the history with the Wagner family and Mark French with the Historical Society, that some of the original birthday day-esque events started on that property. And we were actually able to find a picnic photo outside of Jane Valier's house in 1925, when they had a picnic called the Little Thompson Pioneer Picnic outside of her house. And it's darling. Like, I might have gotten misty-eyed looking at it. And so to know that we're gonna be celebrating and honoring the heritage of that property is really breathtaking. So I think Birthday Day is gonna take on a little bit of a historical theme.
Yeah.
So.
When was that first photo?
1925.
Okay, so it's like 98 years.
Well, and I have to be careful with the chamber because the chamber has their official historical dates of how long they've been putting on birthday days, so it's not attached, but we are honoring, the chamber is gonna honor the history of that property, which is so exciting, I think, for our community to be all together on a property that everyone can be excited about, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Awesome. And anything else? Okay.
That's
All
it.
right.
You got it.
I will adjourn the meeting.